Chairman of the Douglas County Board of Commissioners to introduce and confirm the commissioners present tonight.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. We'll take the roll. Is Chairman Dobbs here? Is Chairman Dobbs here?
Members of the Planning and Zoning Board, if you'd confirm your presence when I call your name. Rob Thomas, our Vice Chair.
Present.
Teresa Knowles.
Present.
Oric Curry.
Present.
Brandon Penniman.
Present.
Frank Payne.
Present.
And Kirk Nicholson.
Present.
We do have a quorum on Planning and Zoning. Allison Duncan, our Planning and Zoning Manager, will now introduce the county staff, Planning and Zoning staff present in the meeting. Ms. Duncan.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight we have with us Tiffany Stewart Stanley. She is our Chief of Staff. We have Cheryl Ringer from the County Attorney's Office. We have Suleiman Rana, our Director of Transportation. We have James Worthington, our Director of Development Services. We have Brian Keel joining us from the Water and Sewer Authority. Phil Schaefer is our Senior Zoning Administrator. Johanna Womack is our Planning and Zoning Board Clerk. And Kim Waters is our Planning and Zoning Secretary. And as always, we appreciate our sheriff's deputies and we appreciate our communications team for being here to help pull everything together for us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. There's a reversionary clause that applies to each rezoning, and that is the applicant, the agent, or the property owner has 24 months to vest the zoning change after the Board of Commissioners have granted an approval. As far as tonight's procedure goes, I will handle the public hearings. Planning and Zoning staff will introduce each application, followed by a presentation on the application. The applicant or the applicant's representative and members of the public in favor of the application will be able to present information. They will each have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes to speak on behalf of an application. Following that, members of the public in opposition to an application will be able to present their information. They also will have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes in order to speak in opposition to the application. After the opposition completes their input or the time has elapsed, the public hearing will be officially closed. At that time, the staff will clarify any points of the zoning case that the board may have. If the staff is unable to satisfy the board's questions, the board will then ask the applicant for points of clarification. And this is not a time for the applicant to re-present their case. Following that, Planning and Zoning Board will entertain a motion. Our first agenda items tonight are the approval of the minutes of the January 9th, 2024 regular Planning and Zoning and Board of Commissioners meeting and February 9th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners meeting. Planning and Zoning Board, after reviewing the minutes, are there any comments, questions, or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Rob Thomas. I make a motion to approve the minutes from January 9th and February 6th, 2024 meetings.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Frank Payne, I second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of January the 9th and February the 6th, 2024, signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Planning and Zoning Board has approved the minutes of January the 9th and February the 6th, 2024, and forward it over to the Board of Commissioners for approval.
Yes, sir. Board of Commissioners, we have a motion from the Planning and Zoning Board to approve the minutes of the January 9th and the February the 6th, 2024 meetings. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the January 9th and February 6th, 2024 meeting minutes.
We have a motion, do we have a second? I'll second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Dobbs?
Yes, I'm in, agreement.
Thank you,
If you can
sir.
hear me.
Thank you. We are unanimous, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this point in time on our published agenda, I'm going to ask that the item M 2024-04 and Z 2024-15 be moved to the top of the agenda. Ms. Duncan, do you have a recommendation on these items?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did receive a request earlier today to have the application tabled until our April meeting. Planning staff is ready to move forward. We know we have some members of the community who are here in regard to this application, but we certainly wanted to allow the applicant time to present their request to you so that in the interest of the citizens, they don't have to wait until the end of the meeting if it is the will of the boards to table this. I believe Joe Fowler is going to be representing the applicant. Again, planning and zoning staff is ready to move forward, but we will certainly defer to whatever the decision of the boards are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Fowler.
Joe Fowler, Post Office Box 49, Douglasville, and good evening, everyone. This is an acre-and-a-half tract on Lee Road that's currently zoned heavy industrial, pardon me, heavy commercial, misspoke, needs to be light industrial. The use has been predominantly residential for most of the life of that property, but we've requested light industrial because you cannot put a 10,000 square foot warehouse to make repairs to pallets that are used for shipping purposes. My client bought it without realizing that. Bad for her, because now she's got to do this rezoning. We thought we would be able to work it out in heavy commercial, but when you look at the NCAIS codes on that, there's a provision for miscellaneous manufacturing, but according to the planning staff, miscellaneous manufacturing won't work for the repairs to pallets. So we have worked out what we believe to be a workable solution with respect to that, and we have 1 month to demonstrate that we can accomplish that. That's the request for the tabling, to give us time to work through those things. We've always worked well with staff. This is a situation where, based on some things we've heard in the last couple of days, we think we can move forward if we have some more time. So that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fowler.
Yes, sir.
Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the request. Do I have a motion, please, on M 2024-04 and Z 2024-15? The date would be, well, that would be tabled until April. April 9th, 2024, 6 p.m.
It's Brandon Penniman. I make a motion to table application M 2024-04 and Z 2024-15 to, you said May 9th? April 9th.
April. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second.
A motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, Planning and Zoning Board, I'd ask for a vote. All in favor of tabling M 2024-04 and Z 2024-15 until the April 9th, 2024, 6 p.m. meeting, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you. All not in favor? What? Okay. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
M 2024-04 and Z 2024-15 comes to the board with a recommendation to table.
Thank you, sir. Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation to table M 2024-04/Z 2024-15. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table M 2024-04 and Z 2024-15 as requested by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same. Motion carries, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fowler.
Thank you all.
Best of luck to you and see you next month. Mr. Schaefer, would you give us our next agenda item, please, sir? Oh,
So if you're here for the Lee Road, anyone who was here for this case, then this is where we've tabled it to April 9th.
yeah.
So you don't, if you want to scoot, you're welcome to scoot. Welcome to stay, though.
Do I need to untable this before you?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you'll have to untable this one.
All right. Planning and Zoning Board. I need a motion to untable Z 2023-71 and S 2023-72, which was tabled at our last meeting. Could I have a motion to untable, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Kurt Nicholson. I make a motion to untable Z 2023-71 and S 2023-72.
Or Curry, second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion about untabling? At this point in time, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of untabling Z 2023-71 and S 2023-72, please signify by raising your hand. Got it that time. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
The Planning and Zoning Board unanimously requests that we untable Z 2023-71 and S 2023-72, sir.
Board of Commissioners, we have a motion to untable Z 2023-71 and S 2023-72. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion to untable Z 2023-71 and S 2023-72 that was tabled on the January 9th meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. The motion carries, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. At this point in time, Mr. Schaefer, would you reintroduce this for us? And if I'm remembering correctly, we have already held a public hearing, so we just need an update from the staff and then questions from the boards.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so this evening, this is Stack that has requested a rezoning from RA and LIR to LI and a special use permit for a data center and substation located at 808 Factory Shoals Road. The update comes to you because at the original hearing, there was some discussion about one of the conditions and the wording that related to the water usage and the Water and Sewer Authority's request for specific language to be attached to this condition of approval. So what we've done is we've gone back to the applicant. They've worked out the actual language. They've agreed to the language. And I believe what we have here is that update. In addition, since that meeting, we have had some very detailed elevations submitted for the building so that we can see what they're trying to build and how it would comply with our quality growth overlay district. So that's something else that I would like to just show you so that you can have a feel for what they're trying to do. The condition as requested by the Water and Sewer Authority, this is going to substitute condition number 3 as was originally read. All the other conditions that were read in the January meeting were agreed to. This is the only one that required some additional language. This is a condition number 3. The Douglas County Water and Sewer Authority understands that the use at this site project is being considered in conjunction with one or more additional uses and sites. The proposed use of water and wastewater resources exceeds the community's long-term plans for water resources and would impact the ability to serve other planned future uses. If the projects receive local governing authorities' approval, the authority proposes the development of certain public water and sewer infrastructure improvements necessary for this project, which must be installed, and developers will contribute to such installation per an executed development agreement to support the projects. The infrastructure improvements will be installed per the authority's applicable construction standards and requirements following execution of any development agreement. Applicant acknowledges that in discussions with the authority to finalize a memorandum of understanding regarding water usage at the project and surrounding projects, an applicant agrees to abide by the terms of an executed development agreement between the applicant and the authority as contemplated by the memorandum of understanding. So that's the new language of condition 3 that would allow all the parties that are involved in some of this, the data center development, to participate with water and infrastructure improvements in that area. There are some, but we don't have them all spelled out yet. That will happen during the Development Review Committee and the engineering portion when we get the civil engineering sets to be able to agree to exactly what's going to be done where. So we don't know what that is or what the timing might be quite yet, though the Water and Sewer Authority has been in discussions over how that's going to unfold over time. In addition, the additional detailed renderings from the proposed building and the equipment have been provided. Some of the issues that now we can cover are the opportunity to authorize the concepts, color, palette, and materials being used for the project. The materials will include concrete tilt-up walls finished in earth tones and gray tones, insulated metal panels as main wall segments, and accent panels in earth tones, and fabricated metal panels as screening for equipment areas and around barriers in earth tones and white and silver finishes. Just to remind everybody where this is, if you look on the map right there, it is surrounded in red. There is a dark blue and then a somewhat lighter purplish color. The lighter purplish color this evening is what we were rezoning. It's just that small residential slice that was never actually rezoned. The remainder of the property was rezoned some years ago when T5 immediately to the west rezoned everything to light industrial, restricted. So that's what we're looking at. This is the site plan. Again, you can see that it's two buildings to the north. The electrical substation is the one that straddles the property line between what's currently zoned and what still requires to be zoned. And then here we have the example of the substation on the right. You can still see that slice of pie that's to the bottom of the picture. That's still residential zoning and has houses on it, so those will be removed when they do the construction of the substation. As far as the siting, I wanted to remind everybody that the T5 site to the west is the left of this picture. The orangish colors are both electrical substations. They're placed close together to take advantage of the runs for the high tension wires that'll feed both of them. And then here is part of the color rendering set that they had submitted to us. So we would propose that these renderings be approved in terms of what we will hold them to in terms of an architectural standard for the elevated architecture in the Quality Growth Overlay District. As you can see, this is kind of a side view from the street side, north elevation. Here's another elevation showing you the height of the building, approximately 116 feet, and top of the parapet 96 feet, and the walls approximately 64 feet. So the building's height is quite high. And then here's another view showing from the west elevation. And this is a call out of the different materials that are being used. So there's some finished metal product at the top. There's some polished metal product in the middle picture there to the right. And then there's tilt-up walls as well as some color renderings for the actual concrete that's going to be used. Again, the same here. It's showing you the actual color palette and the patterns that will be used on the building itself. We were attempting to get this building and its neighbor to be similar in an earth tone, more of an office complex look rather than the normal tilt-up walls and regular paint you see on the cross-dock warehouses. So this looks a little bit more like an office complex rather than the tilt-up of a cross-dock warehouse. Again, this is the recommendation is for approval with the following findings, which were already read into the record, and then the conditions which were originally read into the record, which the applicant had agreed to previously. That's the second condition, that they come to the DRC. And then this third condition is rewritten for the current and requested text from the Water Sewer Authority. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer. Since we've already had the public hearing on this matter, is the applicant or the applicant's representative present? Okay, would you approach the podium, please? I need to get an agreement that you are in agreement with the condition, number 3, that was been changed and modified.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Would you state your name and address for the record?
Brett Buckland, 211 Perimeter Center Parkway, Atlanta, Georgia, 30346. Representing Stack, I'm Brett Buckland with Bowler Engineering, and yes, we are in agreement with the conditions as read.
Okay, thank you. If
Thank
you
you.
would stand by. Planning and Zoning Board, at this point in time, do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff?
It's Rob Thomas. I do have for both the staff and for the applicants. I'll start with the staff. Since there's going to be multiple buy-ins to this particular project as far as the water, the WSA, how do we determine who's going to do what and percentages and costs and different things like that? Is that something that DRC does, or?
I know that Brian is here from the Water Sewer Authority, that he's welcome to come up and address that. Generally, this is a development agreement between the parties that would go before the board at the Water and Sewer Authority to iron out the details of who will be allocated what responsibility, where certain infrastructure will come from, how it'll be paid for. It's not part of what the zoning issue is, and in order to get the building permits, of course, the Water and Sewer Authority is a sign-off on those permits. So everything that has to be done goes before the engineering review of the Water and Sewer Authority in order to iron out all those details. Just as we do our Development Review Committee, they're a participant in that process.
Okay. So they have all, so they're going to have all the principals at the table at the time and kind of
Correct,
work
yes.
it out.
As we understand it, all the principals have agreed to that specific condition.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Thomas, I can elaborate if you'd like.
Sure, please.
Oh.
Yeah.
Brian Keel with the Water and Sewer Authority. Good to see you, Board of Commissioners, Planning and Zoning Board. As Mr. Schaefer indicated, we have been working with both applicants tonight on what we're calling a memorandum of understanding, a document to lay out basic terms for how are we going to meet their near-term and long-term water needs. We are close, we're not quite there, but we're close on an agreement on that memorandum of understanding. The MOU contemplates individual development agreements with each developer. So we will be going into more detail in these development agreements, and we will be spelling out such specifics as who is responsible for building what infrastructure on what timeline, those components that the Water and Sewer Authority sees as being available to serve a greater portion of our population, we will participate in monetarily. So those agreements would also work out that cost-sharing agreement. But the memorandum of understanding we're working on right now, the intent is let's just lay out basic concepts, understanding what's got to be done to serve these sites. And we're very close there. I'm happy to go into a little bit more detail on, what infrastructure improvements we have discussed to date, if you all are so interested, or answer any other questions you may have.
Yeah. Well, Brian, you definitely answered it. I'm just curious just how you're going to get all these principles together, and, you're talking cost, and so you guys are going to, so WSA is also going to pay for some of it pertaining to what going to help the greater good, I guess, some of the residential housing in that area as well.
Yes, sir. So the developers will be paying the full cost of the infrastructure needed to serve their sites with the demands that they are requesting,
Okay.
the water demand that they're requesting. There may be some opportunity that we can participate and build some additional infrastructure to better bolster our system to be able to better serve our current and other future
Okay.
customers. And in that case, we would pay into
Gotcha.
that share of those improvements.
Okay. I'm just curious, who's going to pay the bill? That's what I wanted to know. Who's going to
No, sir, not
But
to
the cost.
serve not to
Okay.
serve these sites. We're not.
All right. It's good to know. Thank you. I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, I'll throw it to the Board of Commissioners. Any questions you may have of staff for the applicant?
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions for the staff or the applicants? Mr. Dobbs?
No, sir, I do not.
We have none, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, at this point in time, we have two items. We will take up the zoning first, because if the zoning fails, then the special use permit is moot. Could I have a motion on Z 2023-71, please?
This is Frank Payne. I recommend approval of Z 2023-71 with the findings and the conditions as outlined by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
It's Rob Thomas. Get a second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion, Planning and Zoning Board?
Mr. Chairman, may I ask staff a question? Mr. Phil? Will you refresh my memory? Did we have any citizen pushback against this project?
No.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving Z 2023-71 as read in the motion with the findings and conditions, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I
sir.
have a unanimous recommendation to approve Z 2023-71 with the findings and conditions that were read into the record and approved.
Thank you, Chairman. Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board to approve Z 2023-71. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve Z 2023-21, I believe it is.
Okay.
7-1.
71.
71, sorry.
It's all right. We have a motion and a second, is that right?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? say-
Chairman.
Go ahead. Comment?
Quick point of clarification, we want to make sure we understand if your motion includes approval with the conditions as presented by staff, the findings and conditions as presented by staff.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you,
Sorry about
sir. Thank you.
All right. With conditions. Then we have a motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Chairman, open for
Oh, go
discussion.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Phil? So during this public hearing, we had no one come out to speak against this project?
We had questions for staff over the period of time that it was being heard, but we didn't have anybody speak opposition.
In opposition?
Yeah. This case was, January? Yeah.
January.
January 9th.
Both cases were there, but people were here for both cases, this one and the one on Rock House. So,
Okay. All right, Chairman, I yield.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve Z 2023-71. If you're in favor, say so by saying aye.
No.
Aye. It's unanimous, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That being what it is, in passing Planning and Zoning Board, I now need a recommendation on the special use permit S 2023-72. Please.
This is Rob Thomas. I'd like to make a recommendation to approve S 2023-72, special use permit, with the findings and conditions read into by staff.
I second that.
I have a motion and I have a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Planning and Zoning Board, all in favor of approving S 2023-72 with the findings and conditions that were read into the record, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman. S 2023-72 with the findings and conditions come to you with a recommendation for approval.
Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board, reference S 2023-72, to approve. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I move that we approve S 2023-72
Okay.
as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same. It's unanimous, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Best of luck for y'all going ahead with that stack project. Mr. Schaefer, our next agenda items, please.
our next agenda item is M 2024-02, Z 2024-07, S 2024-08, Anna Marie Means. Requested action is for a future land use map amendment from urban residential to commercial center, commerce center, a rezoning from RA residential agricultural, PSP public, semi-public, LIR light industrial with restrictions to light industrial only for data warehouses, and a special use permit for an electrical substation located Echo Road and Rock House Road. in Land Lot 175, District 1, Section 5, Parcel 29, together with a number of other parcels, which I'll show you the map for. The properties front the Rock House Road corridor on the west side, and they are bounded on the south by Echo Road. The sites are also bounded on the west by the Sweetwater Creek and Park, and the sites are mostly densely wooded and undeveloped with several streams and some pretty significant topography. The applicant's proposing a mix of 4 data warehouse structures with approximately 1,465,000 square feet. Buildings will comprise 380,000 square feet each, and their associated parking areas, drive lanes, etc. In addition, the project calls for 336,000 square feet of electrical substation, all the buildings to be served by primary access to the existing Rock House Road right-of-way. Staff held a community information meeting on January 11th, 2024. That was our formal community information meeting. Staff also remained after the February 6th Board of Commissioners meeting to discuss with the residents additional issues and concerns. And additional open meetings were held by AWS with the neighborhood on their own time that staff did not participate in. I received this from AWS, which is a summary of all the meetings. We did have a pre-application meeting with the neighborhood on October 29th when the first meeting between AWS and a number of the residents who live in the subdivision occurred. And then, of course, our normal community information meeting on January 11th. Again, additional community meeting on January 25th, January 31st, and then the official one we stayed after on the board meeting on February 6th. The scale of the proposal did exceed the 500,000 square feet for industrial and therefore triggered a DRI, Development of Regional Impact with the state, and they went through that process under DRI number 4078. The ARC, Atlanta Regional Commission, and GERTA, the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, issued their final reports for the project January 19th, 2024. That allows us to proceed with the zoning hearing so that we can actually take action. This is a zoning map for the property in question. As you can see, it's quite a large tract, roughly 117 acres. The surrounding property to the north is planned unit development for residential. To the south is light industrial commercial, along with a very small amount of residential. To the east, of course, is the light blue is light industrial restricted. And then a little bit to the west is one of those very interesting, very historic neighborhoods, which is off Summer Lake Road. It's a historic residential area. Here we have, again, the picture, the aerial photography to show. This is where you see the subdivision to the north and to the east, and the site for development, which comprises a number of lots. As we look here, one of the comments that we would have is that it falls, when we rewrote our comprehensive plan, this area now falls completely within the data district that we had named in our future character area map for the future land use, characterizing all the different neighborhoods and areas and how they're going to develop in the future for our comprehensive plan and the future land use map. One of the issues here was in 2017 when they did the Southwest Thornton Activity Center study. This is the study that was done in order to map out sort of the future of what would happen in terms of commerce, in terms of industrial, and in terms of residential. When you look at this map, the red was designated as commerce, the yellow was to remain as residential. In order to honor that, I think what's happened is, and also in terms of reality for topography on the site, the applicant is not developing in any of the yellow. They're only developing in the red currently. And then I wanted to show you a map that I had put together reviewing all of the industrial projects we've had in this neck of the woods, which is quite extensive over the last 5 years. The combined totals are around 7.2 million square feet. We've got about 3.6 million in the approval process or having been approved. This project is an additional 1.4 million square feet. If you added all the city and the county together, it's around 14 to 16 million square feet of industrial that has been approved. Obviously, having truck impacts is a problem, but having rooftop tax revenues is also one of the benefits of some of this industrial along with jobs. The issue for us this evening is this is the site plan. So they're proposing 4 buildings. You can see the 4 buildings, and then the substation is that hatched area at the bottom of the picture. The actual development, I tried to get a little bigger here so you could see the site plan, will be accessing directly off of Rock House Road, approximately in the middle of the property. It's a little hard to see, but the power line corridor runs due north off of that substation. It's the multiple lines that are running along the street there and bending back towards it. We did review the project against the future land use analysis, and we did find that the criteria are all met to allow us to modify the future land use map. We've analyzed it against the zoning criteria as well, and it does in fact meet all of the zoning criteria to allow us to rezone the property. And we've analyzed the special use permit for the substation, and it does meet those criteria as well. Staff is recommending approval of the future land use map amendment with a finding that the character of this area has been evolving towards a higher intensity of industrial and commercial development, and the proposed commerce center character area at this location is generally consistent with the intent of the comprehensive future land use plan to ensure compatible and unified development within specified areas of the county. Staff does recommend approval of the rezoning with the following findings: that the rezoning will not modify the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. The proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive future land use plan categorization of this property as within the Commerce Center area, incorporating varying mixed commercial and industrial uses. The uses permissible in the proposed zoning district are generally compatible with the surrounding property, and the character of this area has been evolving towards a denser industrial development for several years. One of the other issues we find, as far as the issue for, let's see here, there we go, conditions. Scope of the project is authorized for up to 1.465 million square feet of light industrial use as approved by ARC-GERDA under DRI 4087. Any increase in the requested square footage may require additional review under that DRI procedures. The applicant shall be required to connect to public sewer for this development with design criteria and specifics to be reviewed for compliance by the DDC WSA. Item 3, the applicant shall submit to the Development Review Committee for review and consideration, the site-specific developments and access management plans to address the development standards in the UDC and the concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements that are in the staff report of February 6, 2024. Here are some conditions that are required by our DOT. So provide a 10-foot wide concrete multi-use trail along the entire property frontage of Rock House Road. Trail shall be constructed to GDOT standards for the program trail. The trail should be located 4 feet behind the curb and shall be contained within the existing or proposed right-of-way with 5 feet of right-of-way offset behind the curb for maintenance purposes. Number 5, provide curb and gutter and underground drainage along the entire property frontage of Rock House Road with southbound deceleration lane constructed to Douglas County standards for the proposed driveway access to Rock House and Echo Road. Number 6, per the UDC code, Rock House Road shall be improved to a paved roadway with curb and gutter, underground drainage, and sidewalk along both sides of the roadway per county specs. Number 7, a cul-de-sac shall be constructed per county standards at the end of Echo Road. Number 8, provide streetlights along the entire property frontage of Rock House Road. Number 9, all requirements of the UDC shall apply to this development and will be further defined upon development plan submittal. So we'll get that when we get to the DRC, should you all approve it. And then this is number 10 for the rezoning is the same as we just approved for Stack. This is the Douglas County Water and Sewer Authority's request for another memorandum of understanding specifically with this entity. So I'll read it. Item 10, Douglas County Water and Sewer Authority understands that the use of the site project is being considered in conjunction with one or more additional sites. Proposed use of water and wastewater resources exceeds the community's long-term plan for water resources and would impact the ability to serve other planned future uses. If the projects receive local governing authority approval, the authority proposes the development of certain public water sewer infrastructure improvements necessary for this project, which must be installed, and developers will contribute to such installation per an executed development agreement to support the projects. The infrastructure improvements will be installed per the authority's applicable construction standards and requirements following execution of any required development agreement. Applicant acknowledges that this is in discussions, that it is in discussions with the authority to finalize that memorandum of understanding regarding water usage at the project and surrounding projects, and applicant agrees to abide by the terms of an executed development agreement between the applicant and the authority as contemplated in that memorandum of understanding. And then we have the special use permit, which staff is also recommending approval for. The use will not modify the plan, the land use plan, or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code, and the granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare. And then the conditions for the special use permit. We always put this first one in case there's another special use that comes along. If you needed to do something else that required it, we'd have to come back before the board and have another special use approval approved. That's item number 1. And that, item number 2, applicant will submit all of his plans to the DRC for our specific review of whatever engineering is required and address all those impact statements that are in the staff report dated February 6, 2023. And then here again, we've put the same authorities condition of approval in the special use permit so that it's fully covered on all of the property as well. And then the directive to staff on the special use is to go out in a year and inspect it at the annual inspection period so that we can report back if everything was done according to what we require. I have here something that was submitted to me by AWS. This is a list of the conditions that they would agree to. I'm not going to read all of them specifically because they actually reiterate what we've already asked them to do and the other conditions, or these would be required by the Unified Development Code as a normal course of review. Here is some examples of elevations that were in their report so that you can get a feel for what their campus might look like. This is just pictures. These are draft. We do not have an actual elevation set from them to see what might be approvable. And then with that, I'll conclude my review. Some of the rest of these slides are for Amazon to present. I wanted to show 2 things, though, so that we have this on the record. What I did receive, and we had received this about a month ago, was pictures to look into the property so people can see. If you're standing at Rock House Road looking into the site, these are 3 views that they took pictures of so that you can see what a building would look like. So this is view number 1, looking from approximately Echo Road at Rock House into the site. The building is the red line, would be the top of the building. The property drops off quite a bit as you get into it, right away from Rock House Road, so that when you put these tall buildings in, their height is not going to be quite as high as you might think, just because of the way the road and the topography work. So that's the first view. The second view here is right a little bit north of their proposed entry. It's a little hard to see, but the red outline is what you would see, and this is a winter picture, wintertime picture, so you're looking at what would be a building from the sidewalk on the east side of Rock House. So the neighborhood looking west might see the tops of these buildings. And then here's the view from a little bit further north on Rock House. This is what you would see through the trees if you were looking, again, from the east side of Rock House, where there already is sidewalk, and the neighborhood's literally just behind us as we're looking in, what you would see from the property. And then here is a depiction of the elevation changes and where the buildings will sit, and you can kind of see how when you're looking across the initial building here at the main area, this goes up, so you would still see some. There's still some tree cover in between, so it would be through the trees to a degree. And then here is the other view looking into the buildings. This is the north side. It's tilted 90 degrees from north, so these houses are due north of the site. This up here is Rock House. And so you're looking south across the property, and here you can see the really rather dramatic drop in elevation as it comes down to the building pads. There's a stream through there, and then the third building to the south. Just wanted to share that with you so you could have a feel for what the separation of the buildings is. And with that, I'll go back to my original approval and turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Schaefer. Mr. Chairman, could I have a little leniency here? I'd like to take an informal survey before I open the public hearing. Anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this application, let me see your hands. Okay, anybody here wishing to speak in opposition, please let me see your hands. Thank you very much. Okay. I think we'll probably need to give them maybe 20 minutes instead of 15. Sounds good. Okay, I will open the public hearing. At this point in time, we're going to change our time. I'm still going to allow 2 minutes per person for anybody who would wish to speak in favor or in opposition, but we're going to extend the time to 20 minutes instead of 15 minutes of lapsed time. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing in favor. Is the applicant present? Before we start our time, I need to get the applicant to agree to the conditions. State your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, Anna Maria Means, 303 Peachtree Street, Suite 5300, Atlanta, Georgia, 30308.
Thank you, Ms. Means. You heard the conditions that were read in concerning the 3 applications. Are you in agreement with those conditions?
We have one minor edit. I believe the DRI number in the conditions was incorrect. It should be 4078. Is that, maybe we just want to make sure the DRI number is correct. But other than that, yes.
Okay, they will take care of that. Okay, we'll start our 20 minutes at this point in time. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor will follow as soon as Ms. Means gets through. Ms. Means?
Thank you very much. Phil did an excellent job giving you an overview of the site, and so I just wanted to talk a little bit about our community engagement. As you saw, we met with the neighbors multiple times. We wanted to engage them before we even applied. It was very important to us. We held a pre-application meeting, our required community information meeting, 2 independent meetings, and then last month when there was no quorum, we stayed and met with the neighborhood again. It was really important for us to hear their concerns. We met with them, and in an effort to mitigate any possible impact of the development, we offered to work with them to invest into their neighborhood. And we were willing to invest in beautification and community improvement to, again, offset some of the possible impacts from our development. The neighborhood came back to us and they made a counteroffer to us that unfortunately we could not accept. However, this is not the end of the conversation. We want to continue to discuss with the neighborhood how we can address their concerns. We want to continue to work with the neighborhood in mitigating any possible effects of the development. The way that we can do that is to be able to continue to be stakeholders in this neighborhood. Like I stated before, we were here the last meeting. We were prepared to defer to allow for additional conversation with the neighborhood. We didn't have to because unfortunately there was not quorum. So this is sort of our last day of the meeting, and it's important because we have, as you know, we're developers, we have a development timeline, and this is the last meeting that fits within our development timeline. And so in order for us to be able to move forward with development, we would request a vote today. And it's not just to be able to move forward with the development, but to continue to have these conversations with the neighbors and to continue to be able to address their concerns. So our hope is that you approve our application so that we can do that, and I would like to hold the remainder of my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application?
Can I ask her a question? Please, you, dear. I'm sorry, Ms. Mead, maybe? Was that
I'm sorry?
I think
your name was what?
Anna Maria Means.
Did y'all has a traffic study been done to this?
Yes.
What kind of traffic, extra traffic is this going to present?
Are you asking me or staff? I'm sorry.
Yeah, either one of you, whoever can answer it.
So a traffic study was done as part of the Gerda review. When we do the DRI, it's the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority that's reviewing all of the traffic information, and they're the ones that came back with certain recommendations. Those recommendations would be implemented in our DRC process. So there's a handful, one of which was really important, which was the trail. So that was one of the recommendations of Gerda, was to make sure that a trail was there. This is all now cars. They had evaluated this originally as a warehouse project. And then this project came through, which does not have trucks.
Okay. The number of vehicles going in and out of that place on a day, do we have any idea?
Yeah, we can defer to the Director of Transportation, but we do have actual data.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to know.
Hi, Harrison Forder. Yes.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I just want to clarify, the state law requires very specific time for public hearing in favor and public hearing in opposition. So if it is okay with you, rather than giving the applicant additional time to answer your question now, because that makes it a little bit confusing for our public hearing, if we could conclude the hearing and then allow as much time for the Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners to ask questions, if you would be amenable.
You'd
to
like
that.
for me to shut up? Is that what you're trying to say?
I am respectfully requesting that we get through the public
You've got it.
hearing.
Okay.
And then we can have all of the time for Q&A that y'all would like. So thank you. I apologize for that, but thank you. So,
Okay, anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please state your name and address for the record. You would have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Madrigal from AWS in Communities. So today I want to talk about AWS in Communities and our programming. We are specifically designed to bring positive impact programs to our neighbors. This is across the world, anywhere where we have data centers. The first thing that we do anytime we go into any community is that we listen and understand our neighbors' schools, nonprofits, communities. So that's meetings with our neighbors. That is meetings with local school districts. We want to understand what your local needs and concerns are before we provide you the menu, right? We want to make sure it's tailored to you. So just so you're aware of the types of programs we offer, we have 4 primary focus areas. STEAM education, that's science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Skills development, so that's a pretty broad umbrella in that it's everything from workforce development to local skills development through our Think Big Spaces. Sustainability initiatives, and then local social impact. That is a very, very broad umbrella because, again, we're tailoring the programs specifically to your communities. To provide some examples very quickly of what those programs look like, STEAM education, we have Think Big Spaces across the world, 25 located in the United States that serve over 50,000 students. Think Big Spaces are hands-on, minds-on STEAM education labs where students learn not only the basics of your average STEAM, but also through our leadership principles about things like failing fast, learning to communicate, working in teams, and what success looks like for people of differing abilities. So we also have Girls Tech Day, a favorite of mine, I'm a little biased, where over the past 5 years we've reached over 20,000 girls. The goal of the event is to inspire, educate, and empower young women to succeed in STEAM. Under our sustainability, a great example of this is recently in Eastern Oregon. We provided $1.2 million in local solar projects for schools and nonprofits in and around our data center communities. And then again, when I say local social impact, it's a very broad umbrella. A good example is our community funds and our donations, which were over $2 million in Eastern Oregon in 2022.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you also will have 2 minutes.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Saab. I lead public policy and government relations efforts on behalf of Amazon Web Services in Virginia and in Georgia. My address is in Washington, D.C. Would you like that, the full address? 145 Adams Street Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20001. I'm here to talk to you about the economic impact that data centers bring to communities. I'm going to start with the boost to the local economy and state economies that we've invested in. In the U.S., AWS has invested approximately $108 billion, and $38 billion, we've contributed $38 billion in U.S. GDP. We support 30,000 jobs in the communities where we are located. Currently, that is Ohio, California, Virginia, and Oregon, and we recently announced planned sites in Mississippi. To give you a projection of what data center investment from AWS looks like, we have contributed $21.3 billion to local GDP in Virginia alone. And we've also paid over $334 million in business personal property tax in just 2022. These investments contribute significantly to what my colleague mentioned around local community efforts led by us, but also by the communities that we exist in, and the counties and local governments that are charged with managing everyday life. Beyond fiscal economic impact, I do want to add some more color to some of the community programs that we invest in, which tie to the broader ecosystem of data centers. Our data centers facilitate cloud computing services, which citizens use every single day. If you have a phone, you're using the cloud and probably AWS. We invest in programs to support jobs for the future. These include data center work-based learning programs, data center technicians jobs, fusion splicing programs like ones we hosted in Augusta in August of 2022. And we also have been supporting the education of Georgians since 2021. We made a commitment to skill 5,500 learners on cloud computing skills completely for free through partnerships with the Technical College System of Georgia and the Department of Education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
Thank you, Board. Christopher Mignoli, AWS, 5 Manhattan West, New York, New York, 10016. Thank you all for your time. I'd like to run through quickly the site. As we mentioned, we previously identified the site. We are trying to work through it for data center development. Whenever AWS identifies a site that would work for our operations, we want to thoughtfully work with our design teams to be cognizant of the surrounding area. So with that said, I'm just going to run through the site plan and talk through how we think through the layout, the setbacks, and what things we're doing to try to mitigate any concerns associated with our development. One thing that is a concern that we'll speak to in more detail is regarding sound. We wanted to set back the buildings as much as possible from any noise-sensitive receptors. So we did so in this plan, as well as we wanted to have our gen yards be as far away from those neighbors as possible, and that's actually why we even have the gen yards facing each other and not outwards towards the neighborhood. In addition to that, we try to leave as much of the natural greenery as possible to make sure we have the limited sight lines as we reviewed earlier and make sure that they're not looking into our site as much as possible. In addition to that, we also wanted to work with leaving the natural topography of this site. So as we saw, there are really large elevation changes associated with this site. We don't want the buildings to be on one level plane and be something that is high up in the air. That's why we're leaving the natural topography as it sets back, and as you can see in those sight lines, we try to reduce the amount of building that is visible to the public road and to the surrounding area. So as I mentioned, we obviously always want to be cognizant of how we approach developments, work with the community. We will continue to work with the community, address any questions or concerns they have. I just want to thank the board for their time, and I just want to reiterate, as mentioned, we do have development schedules, and we would greatly appreciate a vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 20 minutes. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? I know we had a number of people here that raised their hands, so state your name and address for the record, please.
Richard Williams, Parkside Village. Yeah, sorry about that.
There you go.
Okay, is that better? Okay. We, the residents of Parkside, would like to say we are here. The residents of Parkside Manor and Village have bared the brunt of economic development for District 2 on our backs for the past several years, and enough is enough. No more warehouses and data centers and cutting down our trees all for money. I moved to District 2 in 2017 and decided for Douglas County to be my home based off the potential that I saw. I never imagined that just a few years later, my new construction home will be now sitting in an industrial park. The community of Parkside has been surrounded by large cross-dock warehouses, and now the construction and proposal for data centers, which will completely engulf our homes on all sides, dramatically affecting our water pressure, cellular service, property value, traffic, emergency response time, and overall quality of life. The current proposal for the AWS data center that will consist of 4 3-story buildings and a substation to be situated right next to our home is inhumane and a complete disregard to the quality of life for the families and taxpayers that live here. AWS has confirmed the elevation of those buildings will tower over our homes, as well as be in direct sight lines, which will minimize natural sunlight to our homes, as well as affect the visual optics of our neighborhood from our yards. A lot of our examples based on the negative effects of the neighborhood come from the Manassas, Virginia project, which they have. In conclusion, approving the construction of this project next to our homes is placing the final nail in the coffin to the families and taxpayers' ability to have the same quality of life afforded to the other residents of Douglas County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? If you would state your name and address for the record, and then you have 2 minutes.
Hi, Jatan Newcomb Osborne. I'm with the Parkside Manor community that's adjacent, and we are cohabitants basically in one community. I've been here before. I've been doing this for 8 months, challenging the warehouses that were going on. So over the past 8 months, our community has been exposed to the process of zoning requests and the construction of warehouse data centers within a 3-mile radius of our homes. In fact, there have been 6+ warehouses built in the last 4 years alone, and mostly during COVID when we were not out and finding out these things were going to happen. The impact of these developments has been significant, resulting in heavy traffic, road damages, increased trash, and accidents that have damaged our signs and blocked our roads. We have engaged in discussion regarding the environmental impacts of these additional buildings, which will affect and encompass our entire community consisting of over 250 homes. Specifically, we have focused on the environmental impacts of large data centers, which include the following: high energy consumption on old grids that would not maintain it, greenhouse gas emissions, toxic waste, where it is concerning that our county places more emphasis on car emissions than the emissions produced by 4 to 5 data centers within a 5-mile radius of our homes. We weren't really aware that there was going to be a new data center at the corner, so we will add an additional. So this will be 5 data centers within a 3-mile radius of our home. Water consumption constrain our local water resources. Unfortunately, it appears that the officials representing our district was not doing their job, including the officials representing District 2, including the president of External Affairs Real Estate Investment, a former resident of the Parkside community, and the former commissioner have not prioritized the best interest of the citizens. These individuals have facilitated the establishment of these companies near our neighborhood at an alarming pace. Can I have grace? Can I have grace? Because I don't think we're going to take the whole 20 minutes.
If I give you more than 2 minutes, I have to give everyone, so we had to hold it to 2 minutes.
If we have a full 20 minutes, can I have grace?
We'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? If you would state your name and address for the record, please, and you have 2 minutes.
All right. My name is Valina Davis. I live on the Parkside Manors. All right. I'm opposed to this project. Just like this board of commissioners and Jeff Bezos himself, my children, my husband, I, and my neighbors deserve a quality of life. We bought into our neighborhood over 10 years ago, thinking we had a wonderful home. One of the things that I was attracted to was the city view. Since that time frame, just as my neighbors have stated, our neighborhood has totally changed. We wouldn't have bought in our neighborhood had we known what we know now. A couple of things about a quality of life. We shouldn't be forced to look out of our windows at warehouses. I'm really wanting to know, why is it okay for our neighborhood, that is predominantly black and brown neighborhood, a black and brown neighborhood, to be targeted, so to speak, to be identified as a data site in general? As far as our community outreach, AWS mentioned that that they have been trying to talk with us about opportunities. My question is, as far as the empty Amazon warehouse that is literally a block away from the neighborhood right now, My kid's school hasn't received anything that I know of. So it's kind of like too little too late. And even with the offers that was made, it was ingenuine. So long story short, I'm opposed to it, just like you and anybody else who's sitting here. We deserve to have a quality of life. When I go to work, the one thing I want to do is come home and relax. I don't want to look out of my window and look at a warehouse or hear noise that is ongoing because one of the representatives, I guess my time is up. Long story short, I deserve a quality of life.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? State your name and address. You have 2 minutes.
Hey, how you doing? Excuse me. My name is Ruben Tillman. I stay in Tributary Villages. It just quite simply stated, what are we doing in Sweetwater, guys? Like, honestly, one of the most beautiful parks and attractions in the whole county, and we're sticking it around with warehouses and data centers. It's clearly not what the citizens want. We have a youth innovation center that's 7 minutes away from it that's losing funding right now. You know what I mean? We have a current Amazon warehouse that doesn't have unions. They don't allow their workers to unionize or have apprenticeship programs. It's just not what reflects what the community wants. The community is here in opposition of it, and we're making these changes while there's an open seat for the representative who lives in the community, right? So I clearly stand in the opposition of this and any other future and rezoning for any industrial uses, and especially since we have open warehouses within the comprehensive plan that are meant for breweries and office spaces for nonprofits and leadership within the community. So, guys, this clearly goes against what we already planned for almost 4 years ago, going into the 5th year now for the plan. That space is meant for green spaces. It's stated in the comprehensive plan. So, again, I'm against this data center. No offense to the people who travel here from Atlanta, but the people who live in Lithia Springs don't want this. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening, commissioners and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Whitney Kenner Jones. I live in Tributary Villages. I am also running for county commissioner for District 2, and so I would add, I do think that it would be the most appropriate to table this until that area has a representative who actually lives in the area who can give feedback about what this impact looks to our community members. I understand that they have building and development timelines, but the people who live in the Parkside community, the people who live in Tributary across the street, have a lifetime that they have to live here. This is interfering with people's opportunity to earn generational wealth for their families. They would not have purchased homes in a location that was going to end up a dumping ground for warehouses. They were not aware of this when they purchased it, and I feel like that is a bait and switch that we do have the opportunity to make sure that we slow down and actually meet with the residents in good faith to figure out what they want. The young lady mentioned several things that they can do in terms of education that they can bring to the area. My children go to New Manchester Elementary School right now, and not once have I been at a PTA meeting, a board meeting, where they have come to the table and said, this is something that we can do for New Manchester Elementary. It's the largest elementary school in the district. We don't have a STEM program. We don't have any of the services that they mentioned, and I don't think that they have any incentive once rezoning has been granted and once their plans have been approved. They have no incentive to come back and actually negotiate with the people who live in these communities to make sure that they get the items that they have been promised. So I would ask that you table this again, that they come back to the table, speak with the residents, and show a real plan for how this is going to be a benefit to them. Otherwise, it should be voted down. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, my name's Robert, and I'm Parkside Manor. I'd just like to say, like other people stated, like during the pandemic, a lot of changes happened, right? And in those changes, our quality of life has went down dramatically. And I could go from everything from the neighborhood at least once, twice a week, large trucks knocking down our signs, the stop signs. We barely have enough space for the school buses to turn around when they pick up our kids, right? And as we started getting these factories up in the wooded areas, they start surrounding us and they're on 3 sides. So it forces all the animals, all the wildlife into our yards, and it's costing us money. Like I have more holes in my yards and more things digging up my yards and more animals digging up my yards than ever. Year after year, it's getting progressively worse. So I appreciate AWS coming out here and offering us STEM and offering us this education, offering us all of this. But it really does not matter when it's affecting our homes physically. The way they're pushing out the animals, the way the traffic has slowed down our ease of movement for the neighbors. We can sometimes not get out in the morning because there's tractors stuck in the middle of the road trying to turn around. People got to get to work. And if they already put in, what was it, 114 million or whatever square foot, and they haven't fixed it, I don't think another 1.4 million is going to make them do any different. So I would ask that we say no. I understand we want to table it, but it's a flat out no. Nobody in the community wants it. They want it, but they're not part of the community. They're paid to want it. We live here. We don't want it, period. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? We still have time.
Diane Fitzgerald. I live in Parkside Village. I moved here to Georgia in 2007. I moved to Parkside Village because it sat in the middle of the woods. No one knew we were there. When folks came to visit me and turned on Factory Shoals, they would say, "Are you sure I'm in the right place? Because it looks like I'm about to go to a Klan meeting." That's how much we were in the woods. When you first did the comprehensive plan, I went to those meetings. I was part of those meetings when you built in Douglas Hill Road for those trucks to come through because we knew there were some warehouses coming. And at that time, Google Row was up Riverside Parkway. Somewhere along the line, that changed during the pandemic. My house sits here now in the middle of a warehouse that's here, an Amazon warehouse that's in my backyard, that even though they say with the elevation, you don't lose anything. What I've lost from the Amazon warehouse is the framing around my door on my backyard. Because since it blocks so much of the sun, because of how high it is, I don't get any sun on the back of my house. In the years since that warehouse has been there, I've replaced the frame on my back door 3 times. It's now composite because it stays wet if it rains. You asked about traffic. They mentioned at one of the meetings that with their 4 data center buildings, there will be 50 employees. That's 200 more cars coming through on this 1-lane road each way. We've asked several times, have you built a data center in a residential neighborhood? And they said, yes, we have. It's been successful. Well, can you bring us pictures of what that looks like so we can see what it really looks like in our neighborhood? All we get are renderings. We never get anything concrete to show how this will affect us, and it's not fair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Hi, good evening. My name is Rochelle Malicio, and I live in the Parkside community. I actually live in Parkside Manor. I will not attempt to rehash everything that my neighbors have already restated. You may hear some reiterations very briefly, but for the most part, I am the second homeowner who moved into the Parkside community, the first on the Parkside Manor side. And when I moved in, it was KB Homes who was developing a low-end to a high-end community. We were told that homes would go up to Sweetwater that would eventually elevate up to $600,000. This was in 2005. So here we are 19 years later, and we no longer have the equity that we were promised when we first started building our homes in the Parkside community. We've had several builders who have come through since then. We have dealt with all of the drops in the housing market, et cetera. But what we've seen is that every community around us within Lithia Springs that's not impacted by warehouses, they're showing a great improvement in their equity while we remain depressed. Within 20 years almost, we are not even seeing the doubled value of our homes because of these warehouses and prospective data centers that are now bookending us. I would also like to say, as far as the traffic goes, I see the trucks passing my window when I'm standing in the kitchen washing my dishes because my window faces Rock House Road. And what we were told with the other data centers and with planning and zoning, and I guess with code enforcement, is that feasibility studies were done, traffic studies were done. We're addressing this. It's not addressed. We still have trucks that are coming from the other data centers and the other warehouses that are coming through our community, causing the infractions that were just mentioned, that are causing even damage to our marquees. And that budget we have to pay for because we can't run down the truckers who've done it. I could go on and on and on, but I will tell you that I staunchly oppose these warehouses, data centers, I don't care what they are. I staunchly oppose additional things that are going to impede the progress and the ability for our community to continue to thrive.
Okay.
So I thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Please approach the podium. You'd state your name and address for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Melody Wilcox. My address is 2280 Pine Drive, Douglasville. And I just want to talk from a personal standpoint because the excessive building has affected me and has affected my neighborhood. Even though I'm not in their neighborhood, I live in District 2. And a couple years back, there was a big building project that was going in next door to us, and we fought it. We fought it hard, and I'm sure some of the folks here will remember that. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter that the people in the neighborhood didn't want it. It didn't matter that it was going to affect them in a bad way, and it affected us personally in a bad way, and the work that we do. It didn't matter. Nobody listened to what the neighbors wanted. So the results of that now is their beautiful lake has been polluted by silt and other runoff. We do have trucks coming up and down our dead-end street that have left potholes up by us that nobody's addressed. The builders made promises to the neighborhood that were never kept. And I'm not saying that because I'm poor me. I'm saying I get where they're coming from. How many more data centers do we need and warehouses do we need? And my question here is, how many of them could sell their house right now for what they even have into it? Because nobody wants to live by one. Nobody wants to purchase a house, buy anything like that. So your residents that have been here for years, who have put their lives and their taxes that they're paying into this community, are going to end up, when it comes time to sell, they're not going to be able to get what they want out of those houses if anybody buys them at all, because nobody wants to live there. It's just a very frustrating thing when nobody listens to what the community feels. And like I said, I've been there. We're still suffering the consequences of the decision that was made by zoning and by the commissioners at that time. I don't want the same thing to happen to these folks and have them lose. When they bought there, I guarantee you that the warehouses weren't there, and now we are giving them precedence and not caring what the residents feel. And I want to have one question. Are there any tax incentives or other incentives that this data center would be getting?
Well, this is not a point to answer questions. This is just a public hearing.
Okay,
You to make a
well,
statement.
if there are, my question would be next to that then is, why are the small businesses in the District 2 area not getting those same incentives? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Yes, sir. You state your name and address for the record, and then you have 2 minutes, sir.
All right, my name is Will Jones, and I live at 3306 Brenda Lane, Lithia Springs, Georgia. I am not in District 2, I must confess, but I am right on the edge of it, near Sweetwater. And I just want to piggyback off a humble lady, Ms. Wilcox, who is also running for District 2. She didn't mention that, but the other candidates did mention it. And what I want to say is that I'm standing up here as a voice for the rest of this county. Because if we continue to allow our Douglas County and Lithia Springs in District 2 to continue to be ATL'd, which we didn't move here to be like Atlanta. We didn't move here to be like New York. We didn't move here to this county, as many of our residents are from other places in Georgia and other states. We did not move to Douglas County so that we can look like DC. And so all I'm encouraging us is to be mindful of this. Yes, there were things that were happening under other administrations where they were for allowing these things because they wanted it to look like these places. But we have new leadership now, and we can have new leadership that wants us to be who we are in Douglas County. We're that rural place that's far enough where you can enjoy the country area, but also be close enough to where you want to go and do things in the city. You can do things like that. So let's not ATL our Douglas County, and let's not New York our Douglas County. Let's push back, let's slow down on this, because I know that there are leaders here that are planning to do great things, that bring better things here than just buildings and structures like that. Thank you very much for your board. I appreciate all your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Anyone, let's see, at this point in time, our 20 minutes is over. So we will close the public hearing on this matter. Thank you very much. Yes, Ms. Duncan.
Thank you. One point of order. As I had mentioned previously, there are some very specific time limits that are prescribed under state law, and so one of those would be in an instance where you have a considerable amount of speaking in opposition. I think it is prudent to give a commensurate amount of time in rebuttal. So we have hit about the 20-minute mark in opposition. By my estimate, we took about 8 minutes in comments for. So I would recommend that you give time for rebuttal from anyone who wishes to speak for, just to make sure we give the opportunity for balanced time. If there's any questions about that specifically, I'm happy to answer them, but that would be my recommendation.
Yeah. According to my time here, that you're exactly right. There's 8 minutes not used in favor.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I have a little issue with that, and that is you had an opportunity to speak when we opened it up, and the people spoke that wanted to speak, and I don't know why we want to continue to hash this.
So again, respectfully, we do allow 2 minutes per person in the interest of time to make sure that people would like to be heard.
Sure.
I would, again, recommend that you need to give commensurate time for people to speak in favor that spoke in opposition. Again, there may not be anyone who chooses to speak in rebuttal, but in complying with the spirit and intent of the state law, it is my recommendation that you do so. We also have the county attorney's office present if they have anything that they would like to add in this regard one way or the other. Don't mean to put you on the spot, but that is my recommendation, is that we try to balance out the time a little bit more evenly.
Well, having known me as long as you have, you know I'm hard-headed, so my point is we gave you 20 minutes. You only took up 12 of it, and you've had your opportunity, and my opinion is it's time to do it. But listen, I'm just one voice speaking, so.
County
I'm
attorney.
sorry?
The attorney.
Oh,
We'll let the attorney
County
talk.
attorney.
Yes.
There you go. I didn't see her coming around the corner.
Hello, Board. Hello, Planning and Zoning Board. I would agree with Ms. Duncan in that because you have the 2-minute time period per person, they actually didn't have the opportunity to go the full 20 minutes. But just to be consistent with what we've seen in some of the case law, you should provide them an opportunity to give you, any rebuttal.
I withdraw my opposition.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this point in time, we will, did anyone from AWS wish to make another comment?
We greatly appreciate you allowing us additional time. I just wanted to address a few things. One of them is that a lot of these issues that were brought up by the neighbors, we took seriously. In your packet, you'll see a lot of answers to those on the frequently asked questions slide. Another point I would like to make is that because this is a data center and not a warehouse, there should not be any heavy truck traffic once the site is completed. There will be approximately 20 to 25 employees per building, so there are 4 buildings. They're not all going to be on the same shift. And so the traffic, when you look at the traffic data between a warehouse and a data center, it is significantly reduced for a data center. I would also point out that a lot of the initiatives that we brought up, the STEM initiatives, the investments in the community, those are things that we're unable to do if we can't get past this first step. And so, like I stated in the beginning, we want to continue those conversations. We want to listen to where they want our investments. We can't do that until we're stakeholders in the community, and we can't be stakeholders in the community until we get past this vote. AWS is not just everyday real estate developer, and so the AWS's reputation is very important to them, and my reputation is very important to me. And so we certainly aren't just giving you lip service. What we're saying we are going to do is something that we're committed to doing with the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello. I just wanted to speak.
State your name.
Hi, my name's Maria Saab,
Thank
AWS
you.
Public Policy Lead. I just wanted to answer some of the concerns about the programs that AWS offers and the comments made about unfulfilled promises. We have a history of maintaining our promises in the counties and places where we operate, specifically as AWS, and also in places where we don't operate. I mentioned to you a program in Georgia, skilling 5,500 learners completely for free. We met that target 2 years ahead of schedule, and we've continued to iterate on that program. We've been offering a Fusion Splice program in Augusta, which provides individuals opportunities to learn skills in laying dark fiber, which do not lead to direct employment with AWS, but vendors all across the country in highly competitive jobs. On Friday, we'll be celebrating the opening of a Northern Virginia Science Center that serves 4 counties of students in the Northern Virginia area, and that's just one program of many. Amazon as a whole, including AWS, offers over 80 workforce development programs, many of them for free, many of them that can be leveraged over easy technologies, and those programs would be available to the community members here if we had the opportunity to locate here. So I just want to make sure that they know that we are committed community members, eager to serve them on all facets of what's important to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to make any comments? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing on this matter. At this point in time, do we have any questions from Planning and Zoning Board of staff or the applicants?
Or Curry, I have a question for staff. I know we had talked about the traffic was one thing that was brought up earlier. Can we have the traffic representative come up at this time and kind of talk about the traffic? Because I know that was some of the issues that everyone had. I live in District 2, and I know about the traffic. I don't live on that side, but I know about the traffic on my side. So just want to kind of reiterate some of the things about the traffic study on both sides. I know they had talked about earlier that it won't be as many cars as versus trucks, because there's a big difference in trucks and a car. So go ahead.
Good evening, board. The traffic study that was provided for the review stated that the daily vehicle generated trips would be about 1,400. The one that was reviewed stated that there was roughly over 400 heavy vehicles on a daily basis that would be linked to this development. Now, in lieu of such a big development, there are various roadway improvements that have been recommended by regional partners, but will be incorporated in our review and DRC process. So that involves Echo Road improvements, Rockhouse Road improvements, Thornton Road at Factory Shoals improvements to mitigate some of that added burden to our infrastructure.
Okay. So you said about 400 vehicles went in the construction phase.
Right. This traffic study was dated April of 2023.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's the latest they have, but that is what we had for our review.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Are we still in the public hearing, or have we transitioned?
No. Public hearing is closed. This is questions from the boards to the applicant or staff.
Yes.
Hi, Harrison Forder, Kimley Horn, traffic
traffic engineer representing the applicant. So the numbers from the April 2023 study reference the previously proposed warehouse plan by Taylor and Mathis for the site. So we did a new traffic study. That's the DRI 4078 that was referenced in the staff conditions. It was a similar number of daily traffic, about the 1,400 number, but no heavy vehicle traffic was expected with that. If the warehouse that Taylor and Mathis proposed was about half the size, and that's why the daily traffic number is about the same. If you developed 1.4 million square feet of warehouse here to match the data center development, it would be roughly double the traffic of the data center.
Okay, thank you. Also, the same question, WSA, a representative for the water department. I just want to look at, we're trying to look at every avenue of this because this is something that's affecting the community. I heard all of your voices, some of the things that y'all had to say, and it's very important that we kind of look at every aspect of this in making a decision. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Do you have a particular question?
Well, I know that they talked about the water supply being, you know, it's not going to be as much water supply, or meaning that the pressure is going to go down in the community and the serviceability. I know, you know, when you're dealing with that type of warehouse, you're going to have fire hydrants and things of that nature that's going to be required. So what this effect is going to have on WSA as well as the people inside of the community?
Yes, sir. Brian Keel, again, representing Water and Sewer Authority. So I'll say, to begin with, as of right now, we're not aware of any ongoing pressure issues in our system in the area. If there are any residents that are experiencing pressure issues, I would invite them, you know, please come talk to me in the back, or please come to our office, call into us, you know, let us look into those issues right now so we can solve them right now. Looking into the future, if these projects are approved and come online, certainly the water demands, the additional demands that they are proposing on our system could create potential future pressure issues. However, the infrastructure improvements that we are negotiating with them in the memorandum of understanding and the agreements that I referenced earlier, those infrastructure enhancements will not only address those possible pressure issues, they will take care of any additional needs of these developments. They will likely actually improve pressure in this area over what we have today. So we are working through those matters with both applicants tonight, and that is the crux of this memorandum of understanding that we are working to develop with them.
Okay. That's all I have. I'll yield my time to other board members.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board, of the staff or the applicant?
I have a question to the applicant. I don't know who could answer it, but there was an indication that there's a timeline involved, and if it's tabled, then it would interrupt that timeline. Can you explain a little bit further about what you're talking about regarding that?
Sure. So as I stated, we started this process in October. We wanted to work with the neighborhood, so we waited to actually apply in order to do that. We were willing to defer from last meeting. There wasn't a quorum, so we ended up being here. Our development timeline, our closing timeline to be able to purchase the property and develop the site won't allow us to move forward if we don't receive a vote today. And we understand the concerns about not having a District 2 representative. When we started the process, there was a District 2 representative. Of course, as you all know, there is a chairman who represents all the citizens of Douglas County. And you know, we hear those concerns, but unfortunately, because of our development timeline, we won't be able to move forward if we are deferred past today's date.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like Mr. Schaefer to come back to the podium, please. Phil, can you run back through the slides on the heights of these buildings that we're talking about? It seems to be one of the contentions that most of the residents have.
Let me use the slides that they provided us a little bit here to go back through the pictures. So real quickly, this is looking south from the neighborhood to the north, back through the property. So you can see, yes, a very tall building of 112 feet would approximate what you're looking at here. Through the woods, there's trees. And then the other picture here, looking again across their property, would also approximate so that you can see a house, backyard, and there are quite a few houses here. Looking through the trees, there is the initial tree line that's still about the approximate height of the houses that are there, but clearly the buildings are tall, so you will see across the tops of those buildings from the neighborhoods to the north. It won't be quite the towering building that I know and have listened to and actually been on the site where one of our neighbors mentioned that her yard has got some sunblock from the actual building to the east of her home, but those are quite a bit closer. These warehouses are quite a bit further away from the houses. The property to the east of this subdivision does have large, tall warehouses pretty close. So if you have a rising sun, you would, in fact, potentially lose that sunrise light on her back door. It's easy enough to see how that would happen. But that here is not within the same room. This particular project's west, so you wouldn't see the sunrise come up low across these buildings, and they're south. So again, that lighting effect doesn't affect the neighborhood quite the way it does on the east side of that neighborhood. So I understand exactly what she's saying, having grown up in the big city where buildings block the light for lots of people for lots of different reasons. And zoning was originally actually adopted in order to stop that. That's one of the original purposes of zoning, was air, light, and view.
Great, thank you, Phil, I appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Rob, Tom, I got a question for Phil as well. A lot of talk from the residents pertaining to changes to the comp plan, the character of that area. They're going back as far as, 20 years I've heard, and during the pandemic changes. I know I was here, I know we did a lot of changes to the comp plan and during that time period. Can you go back to, show some of the progression over time?
It's probably easiest to look at this map, though. I apologize, I don't have one that's going to address exactly what you're asking, though I can kind of see what you're trying to get at. If you look at this map, the yellow was one of those early areas on this map that was identified in the old comp plan to retain residential up against the park. The subdivision, which is where in the middle here, where just above the arrow, the subdivision was PUD, planned unit development residential. It was also part of that residential component. So when we mapped the future character area and the future land use in the previous version of the comp plan, that was urban residential. So there was a reason for all of that area to develop as residences. Over time, the boards have since taken the properties to the north and undone what those original policies were, so that warehouses had started to go in on this northern section, and then when Douglas Hill was in fact improved to the north end of Douglas Hill, more warehouses went in, and additional lands that used to be urban residential were redone to commerce center. So the policies were changing over the last several years to accommodate those warehouses, and then, as normally happens, people who own the land apparently decided this would be a better route for them to exit their ownership in favor of someone else owning it and allowing it to develop. So you are having these warehouse projects come in. Apparently that's where the money was from, wherever it's coming. And apologies to the neighborhood, but it's the owners. I mean, what are you going to do when an owner says, I want to sell, and he sells to somebody on Wall Street? We get the Wall Street effect.
Yeah, and I'm a big proponent of property rights, right? I mean, that's what I do for a living. But so currently, by right, what could you do with this land? 118 acres, I believe it is.
So of the 100 acres, the northern half approximately is still urban residentially zoned. Mm-hmm. The southern half has the Commerce Center future land use category on it. So if they ask for rezoning of that area, it does match the future character and future land use intent. So if the board was inclined, you wouldn't have to change anything on that land. But the northern half is still urban residential, so you would have to modify the policy of what zone district can go there. And they're asking for light industrial, but they're asking for the Commerce Center as a future character area to allow the industrial zoning. If it's urban residential, you can't put light industrial residential in that residential zoning. That's the issue. So the policy is you have a split piece of property.
Right.
And it's
And I
difficult.
know we don't do that anymore. I know we don't do split zoning anymore. And I got some property down Highway 5 and Veterans Memorial that's like that. So this is sort of split in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
The top part is residential, the bottom is somewhat industrial.
Mm-hmm.
And their request is to get it all industrial.
Mm-hmm.
What could be done, so I guess my question is, what could be done the way it is split as it is now? The fact that it's, and where does it split? You know what I mean?
yeah,
I mean, it's
so
split,
if
so how do
you're-
you split it?
Yeah, so let me go back to the actual parcel map.
Mm.
You still have to rezone the property because it's still all residentially zoned.
Okay.
RA. All of, every single.
Just an overlay.
All
or
but
the-
a tiny sliver on Echo Road at Rock House is zoned in residential. So you would still have to rezone that. Let me see if I can go back up here so you can see it.
Right.
You see how it's all identified as RA?
Right.
All of it except this sliver right here, which is LI, and a sliver over here, which is LIC. And the issue for them is they have to rezone all of it in order to do whatever they wish to do. But in order for the board to approve the application of a light industrial zoning, you have to have a future land use category that allows for it. And the northern half of this has not been policy-wise remapped to allow for the light industrial. So you have to go there first. So the policy has to change to allow for the zoning to happen. If the policy changes, the zoning can happen. Right now, it's half and half.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the problem, half and half. Okay. And then we're talking one, two, let me see, well, two different,
It's around 10 parcels altogether.
10 parcels.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's hard to see on the photo, but you can kind of see the outlines of the parcels as you look here. So if you follow the cursor, this is the approximate line of what would still need to be policy-wise changed. What's above this line is still urban residential.
Got it.
What's below this line is Commerce Center. The Commerce Center allows for light industrial zoning, urban residential doesn't.
Okay.
So that's the policy change.
All right. And the data center that's enough acreage for the data center? If we just use the
yeah.
bottom half?
Yeah, the acreage requires a road to come in from here and the buildings to go in so that they can all be allocated. So a portion of them will be in the northern part.
We say a road, so if they bought the property and, gave themselves an easement to get through to
Well,
the other side.
you can see here, this is a parcel map. So you're looking at 2 buildings instead of 4.
Right,
The road, you don't need the zoning for the road, but you would prefer it.
right. Okay. I understand a little better now. Okay, that's the only question I had from you. Thank you.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none. Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you may have of staff or the applicant.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments? Mr. Dobbs?
No, sir. No, sir, I do not.
How far is the nearest house to that building? How far is that?
Approximately 350 feet is what I understand. I think that's approximately right. The, up at the, if you look on this line right here up against the road,
Yeah.
that's 100 feet wide. So when you've got about almost 250 here plus the 50 of the road, and another 40 or so into the properties across the street. So it's approximately 300, 350 feet.
I'll have to ask you, Allison, is it appropriate to talk about taxes?
Is your question, is it appropriate to ask a question about taxes? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions that you feel that you would like to ask, we will do our best to answer.
You've chewed me out twice, so I was trying to be careful.
Respectfully, respectfully.
I accept it respectfully. Okay. Somebody asked, I think it was you, what tax incentives they have. I don't know the answer to that, but what I want to know is per year, if anybody knows, what taxes what does Amazon pay Douglas County in taxes per year?
Sorry, is Chris Pumphrey here? I don't know that he is here at the meeting tonight. But we did invite the Development Authority to come to answer any questions that there would be about the taxes or the tax incentives. To be perfectly frank with you, we don't, in the Planning and Zoning Office, have anything to do with any of the tax incentives whatsoever. So that is not a question that we can answer if Mr. Pumphrey or a representative of the Development Authority is not here. If you feel that that's information that you need to make a decision, we would recommend that you table.
I don't know. I
until we
think
can
it's
have him here.
information that needs to be public so people will better understand whatever decision we come up with. I've talked to the Development Authority, and this was a loaded question. The money that comes to Douglas County every year from this project, just this project, this building, is $15.4 million a year, according to the Development Authority. I don't know if that's true. I'm just telling you what they told me. And I think you know, we have to look at all avenues, every piece of information that's come here to this podium tonight. But as people, as governing authorities of this, the amount of tax that it provides Douglas County is also an important issue. I'm not saying it's the most important issue, but I'm told it's $15.4 million per year. Now, understanding that the school board would get about, I guess, 60–70% of that, is that right? 2/3?
I don't know what the percentage is,
So,
Mr. Chairman.
I'm just making sure you know what I know before we make a decision. Okay, I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions by the Board of Commissioners? We're good, sir, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion tonight. Do I have a, well, first thing we have to do is take up the mapping amendment unless we have another motion. Do I have a motion on M 2024-02?
Chairman Rob Thomas, I make a motion to table M 2024-2 due to no representation for that district at this moment. And the date will be at after the election, May 7th election, because it might go into runoff. So I'd rather go further than have to come back and do this again in April. So let me say it again. I know it was a long motion. A motion to table M 2024-2.
Do all of them.
NZ 2024-7 and S 2024-8 until May 7th for proper representation from the Commissioner of District 2.
Or Curry, second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Planning and Zoning Board. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of tabling M 2024-02, Z 2024-07, and S 2024-08 until May 7th, 6 p.m. Please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. All opposed? Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
motion to table M10, M2024-02, Z 2024-07, and S 2024-08 comes to you with a recommendation for tabling until May 7th, 2024.
Thank you, sir. Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board to table M 2024-02, Z 2024-07, and S 2024-08. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to table M 2024-02, Z 2024-07, M 2024 S 2024-08 until there is representation for District 2 until the May 7th meeting.
We have you second it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Discussion.
Okay. All right, do you have some discussion?
I think it's extremely important because of what's been said at this podium for those who live in that district to know who, first of all, you need to know who you're going to put in your seat. You better do your homework because you stated you felt like you've been left out. But you need representation such as I represent my District 4. I would not want a decision based on how my quality of life is and how I'm going to live. You need someone you can get in their ear and you can tell them what you want for District 2 going forward. And I think that's extremely important. So please, you guys really need to do that because it's going to be really important going forward because as you've seen on that map, it can come in and there's other things that can come in and be built right behind you. If this passes or it does not pass, it is still open for the table. So I yield back, Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries, sir. It's tabled.
Thank you very
I
much.
would also, if you don't mind, I would also like to try to have the Development Authority here to answer any tax questions on May the 7th. If we could add that to the motion, appreciate it. All right. All yours,
Okay,
sir.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, we, yes. Anybody that needs to leave after that? We've got a couple of other items to take up, which won't involve this property. Again, we'll give them a minute to clear. And citizens, as y'all are leaving, I wish to thank you for coming and expressing your opinions. We need that.
As far as we know, that was part of the deal.
I just don't feel right because they don't have a commissioner to speak up for them. It just doesn't seem right with something with so much opposition. If it was just a short-term rental or something like that, it would be different.
As Phil indicated prior to, there's some sort of government money available, incentives available, to buy our city. That's why our city such a good
Must be federal money. Could be that. Could, the governor. Shouldn't they make that known to us as a recommending body? Every, let us know everything. And let us know what else.
Next item?
Yes, sir. Thank you very
Please.
much. Next item on the agenda is S 2024-09. This is a special use permit for Brian and Elizabeth Grew. All right, let's see. This is a request for a special use permit for a short-term rental. This is located at 3905 Mason Creek Road in Winston, Georgia. The existing conditions, property is located on the east side of Mason Creek Road. There is currently a single-family detached house and 2 detached accessory buildings on the property. There is also a creek that bisects the property to the rear. This becomes significant because the property is located in the Dog River Watershed Protection Basin. As you know, that's where we require our deepest buffers in the Dog River Basin. So the applicants are aware of the requirement for the 200-foot buffer from that creek that is on their property. So the applicant wishes to add a tiny home to the rear of the property that they want to use as a short-term rental unit. Their stated goal in the application is to support agritourism in the county, to provide a unique farm experience to anybody that is wishing to stay with them. It's a small unit. It will only accommodate 1 to 2 people. They have a gravel parking pad, and the unit will be on its own septic system. So these are the relevant code sections for the request. And one thing that we wanted to make sure that we pointed out is that when I show you the pictures of the unit that is under construction, we want to make it clear that under our codes, this is going to qualify as a recreational vehicle, right? So it's not going to meet the standards for manufactured home. It's not going to meet the standards for site-built structure. But we have in the past approved requests similar to this for agritourism purposes, specifically Z 2021-63 and S 2022-63. We have had the similar thing brought before you, and you have previously approved recreational vehicles for use in this kind of setting. Therefore, we had indicated that we were fine with this application coming forward to see if you were inclined to approve a similar request. But we just kind of underscore this because in the event that the short-term rental does not play out over time for any reason, this is not a structure that's going to be able to qualify for a building permit for long-term occupancy. And if there's any questions about that, I'm happy to kind of get more into the specific issues of that during the Q&A. That being said, when we performed our analysis, we did find that this request is substantially compatible with the criteria in the code. Here is the zoning map of the property. You can see the parcel outlined in blue. It's a flag lot. I think it's about 6 acres that they have there on the property. So that is the subject property. Here is an aerial that shows a little bit clearer picture, and you can also see on the west side of the property that stream that bisects the property to the rear. This is located in the rural places, future land use category of the comprehensive plan, and as we said previously, it is also located in the Dog River Basin. And here are some photos that were provided to us by the applicant of what they anticipate the unit will look like. As you can see, it's a small unit. You can see from one end to the other end through those photos. So as I said, it only accommodates maybe 1 to 2 people. And there's a view from the exterior. Again, you'll notice that this is on wheels. As I said previously, this is going to meet our definition of a recreational vehicle, but is not going to meet our definition under the building code of a site-built dwelling. So staff is recommending approval of the request with the following findings. Number 1, the use will not modify the comprehensive plan or the intent, purpose, and spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. Number 2, the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan categorization of this property within rural places in the Dog River Basin. And number 3, the granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. And we are not recommending any conditions along with this request. So that concludes my report, and always happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Duncan. At this point in time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please approach the podium. You'd have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Crewy. Excited to be here this evening. My husband and I moved to Douglas County in May of 2022. For the intent of living a more rural life and sharing it with others. And so our vision for our short-term rental is to offer a unique farm stay. Guests will be able to collect eggs, pick from the garden, and beyond the experience of our farm, we'll also encourage our guests to seek out all the county has to offer, from great restaurants, beautiful parks, and other stops on the Agri-Trail. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Your address.
Oh, 3905 Mason Creek Road.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Okay, no one else wishing to speak? This is a public hearing, you don't ask questions. You just state your opinion either for or against, and this is the for section.
Correct. Hi, my name is Carla Winston. I'm in Lithia Springs. I'm for this proposal. I am interested to know because I did not see a business application, and I'm curious about how, again, Chairman Miller's tax question comes into play for a short-term rental. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? And we may get the answer to that question. Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please approach the podium. You also have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Glenda Wood. Is that better?
Yeah.
My name is Glenda Wood. I live at 3980 Maple Crest Court in Winston, Ashton Heights subdivision. This is a residential subdivision of 20 years old with over 60 families. Our safety is a concern. By the way, I did not receive, and most of our people did not receive any notice of this hearing. The Grove property joins the back of my property. In December of 2023, I noticed a deer blind at the back of my property. Later that day, I saw Brian Grove at the deer blind and walked up to see him, to meet him, and I will say from my back door to the deer blind was no more than a 3-minute walk. I'm not a fast walker either. I'm not slow, but that's how close it was. The deer blind was approximately 1 foot from my property. 1 foot, not a mile, not a yard, 1 foot from my property. It almost touched my fence. I asked Mr. Grove if this was a deer blind, and his reply was, yes, it's my property. I'll do what I want on it. I expressed my concern about how close to my house, the property and my property, he would be firing guns. A missed shot could easily go through my kitchen window. Again, I'm 2 minutes away. A missed shot would get me drinking my morning coffee. He told me he had already killed 1 deer. He said he hunts at 7 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the evenings, approximately. That is barely daylight and barely dusk. He said hunting season would be over in January, and in January, I noticed that the deer blind had been removed. Okay, frequent shots can be fired and heard. I got
You
one more
got 2
minute?
minutes.
That's 2
Your
minutes?
2 minutes is up.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? You would state your name and address for the record, and then you have 2 minutes.
Yes, sir. My name is Kitiwat Lutpin Maytar. I live on 7280 Berea Road, Winston. Our property back up to the property that they are trying to do the commercial rental. On the back of our property is back up to a Dogs River basin. We have found shotgun shells. We have seen our property stake has been removed. We have seen cinder blocks that people try to build fire. We have seen PVC pipe had run from the Dog River Basin to the other side of the property, and I had never gotten notified from WSA that that was approved. My wife and I live on that 7.8 acres. We have a house there we built 4 years ago, and we do not want to hear gunshot all the time, which we do now. And the backup property is pretty much got some trash that people had come in, and that raised a concern. I like to request to postpone the decision until it can be further evaluated. We have 2 dogs. Our next door neighbor, she's a retired lady, and she had recently had health problem. While she was in rehab, her house was broken into, and I think that's could be bad for us in the future, since we don't know who's going to be out there renting the property. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Hello, my name is Della Lurpin-Mata. I live at 7280 Berea Road. I am a retired nurse practitioner. I did a lot here in this county and for the VA. All I'm going to tell you is I walk my dogs. I have PTSD, and I walk my dogs in the back of my yard. I've seen fire, shrapnel, hear it in the trees at 9 o'clock at night. Bang, 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 bang. That I'm having to come out and come back to my house. Now you're going to tell me it's the blind. It's the blind, and it's facing my house, shooting at my house. And yet they're going to bring somebody else in here who is not accountable to teach them how to live off the grain, or whatever you call it. That's not appropriate. You know, we have people overseas right now that they have fire. I have nieces and nephews come back and live in my house. Nobody should have to live here in America in their backyard and have something like that. Nobody should. That's ridiculous that you have to live in a fear that you can't go in your backyard because somebody can set up blinds and then they can bring people in to teach them how to do it. I'm just telling you, if you do this, I want to do it too. And I want to set one up where I can aim mine at their house. Because that's not appropriate. It's not appropriate in any form or fashion at all. So reconsider. At least let's get some more information on what we're going to do. Make them change the blinds. Make them have some regulations to how they can shoot and what they're going to use, the Dog River Basin or whatever, to water their plants, their vegetables. Make sure that this plan is totally out there, what's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Good evening. My name is Kelly Hayes. I live at 3970 Maple Crest Court. I also had previously hunting blinds in my backyard, a foot or two from my backyard. And I understand hunting season. I grew up on Chapel Hill Road, 25 acres myself. I used to ride four-wheelers, all that fun stuff. But when you're trying to do this around a subdivision full of homes, children, families, I think it needs to be tabled to have more information on what they plan to do. To, living off grid. Are they going to come out there, teach people how to shoot? And it's in my backyard, basically. So I hope it would be tabled so we could get more information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Good evening, sir.
Hi, good evening. My name is KJ Brown. I live at 3960 Maple Crest Court. Of course, these are my neighbors. I 100% agree and concur with what has been said here today. Number one, for the safety of the children, the safety of the community as a whole, there's probably about 6 to 7 houses that this would affect, and mine being one of them. All right, so not only is there guns that's being shot, you're talking about an Airbnb. So this is people that are coming into the area that we have no idea who they are and what they're about. So, there's literally a fence, and for some of the houses, some there is not. So we're just overall concerned and would love for this to be tabled and maybe discuss more and get a little bit more information. But safety is definitely of a concern here, and we'd like more information. if at all possible. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one moving, we'll close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the comments. Do you have any questions of staff or the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for the applicant, please. Hi. You've heard the concerns of your neighbors. Do you intend to have shooting, hunting, if you have a Airbnb? Is that one of your plans, other than collecting eggs and things that you mentioned?
Absolutely not. When it comes to gun safety, my husband used to shoot competitively. We take gun safety very, very important. One thing that it didn't show in the map is that the combined acreage is 13.89 acres. So we have the lot next to us as well. We would never put, somebody mentioned 2 dogs. We have 4 dogs. We have 4 children. We would never put us or our neighbors in danger. And I'm kind of saddened that they feel like we would.
So you have 13 acres total?
Almost 14, yes.
Almost 14, but you've heard the concerns expressed by your neighbors, so you're going to work with them in ways so that they don't hear you shooting at 9 o'clock at night when they're trying to sleep?
I'm Brian Gray, I'm her
Yes,
husband. We live in a rural area. There's people shooting all over the place. I don't even know where it's coming from half the
I
time.
know,
don't
I live
shoot
in a
at
rural
night.
area too, and I hear it all the time
It's
too.
all the time, and it's from everywhere around me. I'm guess I'm getting the blame because I'm doing something that is, out of character for what's normal for people sometimes. So I don't know. Yeah, but we're a total safe family. We're loving. We care about everybody around us. We're really excited about where we're at. It's unfortunate, maybe they hear gunshots, but it's not us all the time. We
Right.
hardly ever do it.
But you know all the gun regulations as far as you got to be so far away
Yep.
from homes,
Yep.
and you've got to shoot into the ground,
Yep.
not into the air.
Absolutely. I don't ever shoot in the air. Why would I do that?
Right, or even if you shoot at deer, you have
Right.
to
Sure, absolutely.
not shoot toward a home.
Yes. Yep.
So maybe that will make your neighbors feel a little bit better about
Absolutely, yeah.
you. Anyway, whoever is shooting, it may not be you.
Glad though. We brought her bread and some venison that we had. We shared. We're trying to be good neighbors as well.
I know those
I don't want
guns-
anybody to be upset.
We have guns shooting around us too.
Yeah.
And it is disturbing, but like you say, it's in a rural area and it's to be expected.
Right.
And your neighbors in the subdivision
Absolutely. I agree.
don't
I
consider
understand.
themselves in a rural area. They're in a subdivision. So I guess it is more concerning to them
Yep.
to hear gunshots. So I just wanted to make sure that you're going to work with your neighbors.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you're not going to have your Airbnb or your short-term rental for shooting purposes?
Nope.
No duck
Nope.
hunting, no
Nope.
quail hunting?
Nope.
None
Not
of
at all.
that? Okay.
No.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely. May I address the concern about using the river basin for the watering of the, so we have, I think it's 8 raised beds, and we use city water. The debris that is in the back of the property was there from the former owner, and we have intentions of cleaning it up before we ever have guests at the
It's
property.
not even on our property, actually.
So is that the PVC that they were referring to?
Yes,
If he was there when we moved in, or it's somebody else.
Yeah, when we toured the property with the seller of the property, he was telling us his father had pigs back there in the 80s when he was in high school, and we just haven't cleaned it up yet since it was way back in the back, so.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
I have a.
Hold
I
on,
have-
hold on.
I know everybody's concern is about the shooting and everything else. My concern is you're requesting a special use permit to put basically RV type vehicle back there in that space trailer. And how many occupants are going to be inside the trailer or the tiny home, or however you want to consider it? And what is the length of that?
The tiny home will measure 8 by 24, 26 or 24, I'm sorry, and will house 2 people. And when we create our listing, it'll be a maximum of 2 people.
So there's no intention to put, because you have a lot of acreage back there. So there's no intentions to add more once you have one.
Correct. The special use permit we're asking for today is for 1.
Okay, I have a question for staff. So the question for staff is, since they doing 1, is there a possibility that they can put, based on the acreage, more than 1? And they would have to come back and get a special use if they required to put more than 1 of those tiny homes or back there.
Sure. So the code is clear that you are only allowed 1 accessory unit, and that's how we're treating this, as 1 accessory unit. So as the property is currently configured, they could not do an additional accessory unit. Now, again, the parcel that is the subject of this zoning request, they have their principal dwelling, and then this would be an accessory. If they have a second parcel, they could build a second house on that parcel. It would have to be a minimum of 1,800 square feet. And then that also would qualify for 1 accessory unit. If they wanted to use it as a short-term rental, again, they would have to come back to this board for approval. But the subject property of this request is only going to be allowed 1 principal and 1 accessory unit.
And so that's, for purposes here, so they just only could use it for that special use. So later on, if they decide to turn that into a rental, meaning of 6 months or a year rental, will they be able to do that, or will they not be able to do that?
We would not recognize that unit as anything that meets the requirements of the Georgia Building Code. So we would not give it a certificate of occupancy as a residence.
So how is we or the staff I can say, check on that? Because if I say one day I'm doing an Airbnb and the next day I do a rental, how am I, or how are we going to be able to look into that and check and see if they're meeting the requirements of that versus turning it back over into a rental?
Sure. So for every special use permit, we do our 1-year inspection, and we go out and check to make sure that the property is being used in compliance. We will also require occupational tax, right? So business license to be issued on the property. If you would like to put any sort of condition on the property, we haven't done this thing in a while, but if you would like to put any sort of condition on the property that sort of time limits the use. So historically in the past, we've said special use permit needs to be renewed every 2 years. Sometimes every 5 years. If you would like to put that condition in place, that if they don't come back and renew within, say, 2 years, then the use would expire. We could certainly consider a condition like that if that would be amenable to the board. But that would be my recommendation of how we would monitor that, is to have somebody come back every, whatever, 2 year, 3 year, whatever that interval is, to present their use if they choose to continue it.
Okay. I'll yield to the other board.
Go ahead.
Were there any code violations reported?
There were not.
From
No.
the neighboring residents?
No, sir. In your staff report, you will see that we have the impact statements as they have been submitted by the various reviewing departments, and so you can see very clearly that code enforcement did not indicate that they have had any complaints. In regard to shooting, I would be honest with you, that is a complaint that we get a lot, that adjacent properties are shooting. I have not gotten that complaint on this property, so far as I know, through code enforcement. We do have a requirement under the code that you cannot discharge a firearm within 500 feet of a residential structure. So that includes your own residence, but if we get complaints about discharge of firearms, that is usually the code section that we use to go out and see if it is being discharged within 500 feet of a residential structure. So we do already have that in place.
Okay. And kind of answering the question the lady asked earlier, they would be required to have a business license.
That's correct.
They're going to collect taxes, and those taxes would then be dispersed to Douglas County.
They would be required to pay their occupational tax, so that is correct. That's the fee that is often called a business license. In addition to that, listing on short-term rental platforms usually triggers an automatic remittance of hotel motel tax. 2021, the state law changed, and so if it's Airbnb, VRBO, or any of the rental platforms, they automatically collect that tax and remit it directly to Douglas County. If they're not using one of those platforms, then they would be responsible for collecting the hotel motel tax and remitting it to Douglas County.
Okay, thank you. Planning and Zoning Board, any other questions? Yes.
I do. Allison, do you happen to have a slide that shows the proximity of this residence versus the adjoining neighborhood? I don't know if it was actually picked up on your slides or not, so I'm just curious.
Sure thing. So the property there, it doesn't show exactly the area, the whole subdivision, but let me see. I should do this down here. Sorry.
So it adjoins those three houses, right?
I believe
there.
this is the subdivision to the rear. Here, there's a utility easement that's on the north side of the property, and then again, these are mostly large lot in this area. But you can kind of see that these are the lots that it would back up to.
All right, thank you.
Can you keep that up? I have a question for the
You
applicant.
probably had the same question.
Yeah. Where is your additional acreage?
Just south of
Just
that.
south of that.
So below the dipper?
Correct.
The below the pot,
Yeah.
okay. So that's yours as well, all of that, so in other words, the whole rectangle?
Correct.
Correct.
I think
Okay.
about it like Oklahoma.
Okay.
So you've got the square and the panhandle.
Okay. The concerns that you you want to address, well, you did address. You have this other acreage, what are you using it for?
Nothing. So because
Hasn't
of
been
the
developed?
No, we don't. We're trying to talk
We
as
bought the
parents.
house
Yeah,
and it had two parcels. so.
Okay.
It came together.
So, the concerns were, you setting up shop to, for deer too close to your neighbor's backyard. Why can't you considering using the other acreage for, obviously they're going to, they don't want it close to their backyard.
Sure.
Even though it might be pointing the other direction. However, can you address that? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I tried to get as much land, if I was closer to them shooting, I didn't think the zoning permit would be what we talk about this, but I understand. Going from back there, the other direction, I was trying to get as far, no way that it would ever focus in that direction. That was my thought process, is to make sure I had as much land that way that was not, they're not in that direction.
But the noise would be,
sure.
In that case.
I agree.
Yeah, it's closer
Right.
to their backyard.
Right.
I see what you're saying. You set up here to shoot that way.
Yeah.
But obviously that's closer.
Yeah,
to
I
their
mean,
backyard.
I do not want to bother any of our neighbors. I feel really bad. I didn't know that,
Oh, so this is the first time you're hearing about this?
Only when Glenda came to talk to me the one time, and I thought we had addressed it together. We have text. We texted her and her son, everybody. We were real nice and cordial about it. We were like, hey, we'll even bring you some of this. If we get anything, we'll bring you something. And we did. We were being very sweet neighbors. We're loving people. We're great. We're just like everybody else. We're excited about where we're at. And I feel bad about this. I didn't know anybody else from that neighborhood was coming to talk today. We were shocked, almost, hard
Typically,
to
we wouldn't
talk.
bring this up. This is zoning, this
Yeah.
is a special use permit, I'm sorry. It doesn't really, but because it was brought up.
Sure.
And opposed, that you're bringing other people that they don't know, don't have any vested
Right.
interest, and they out there shooting, possibly.
Yeah, no, nobody else but us, our Airbnb would not be anything regarding that at all.
Okay, just picking up eggs and things like that.
Right, we just
Okay,
want to
no.
share the getting back to nature with bringing other people in to understand that, because we're both from the city ourselves, and we've changed our whole life to come out here. It's not like this is
Like Green Acres.
right, right.
Okay.
My parents we have bibs every day, every weekend doing work outside. I got a tractor now. It's really, it's been a life-changing event for us, and this is something we really wanted to do. So.
Okay, well, thank you. I just kind of want to bring everything
Sure,
into
sure.
focus as
Yeah.
to your intent, and obviously there's some ongoing issues, but there's nothing from code enforcement saying any issues. So I would say if there are issues,
come talk to us. Yeah,
you need-
absolutely.
Well, or you or code enforcement.
Yeah.
So we get it documented. So, but okay. But thank you. I digress and let him speak.
Okay, any other questions, planning and zoning?
Yeah, I have a question. The structure that you're going to utilize, the tiny home, is it going to be on wheels? Tell me a little bit about that particular unit.
Yes, so we'll remove the wheels, put it on pillars. As she mentioned, it'd be hooked up to its own septic system outside of the basin, so it wouldn't have any concern of polluting anything.
So it won't be like a trailer?
It will not. It'll be on its own pillars, secured to the ground.
Okay. All right. That was my concern.
Anything else, planning and zoning?
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I just wanted to mention that the agenda has this identified as being in Commission District 3. It's actually Commission District 4.
Yes. It also stated it was on the east side of Mason Creek and it's on the west side. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Planning and Zoning Board throws it over to the commissioners for any questions you may have.
Board of Commissioners, you have any questions or comments?
Yes, Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Vice Chair.
Allison?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this one. So we say that it cannot be used for someone to live in, correct? Long term.
Yes, sir.
Does not meet our codes.
Does not meet the state building code. No, sir.
So we're still going to allow someone to live in it for a week, but it does not meet our codes.
So correct. The Board of Commissioners has previously approved similar applications for agriculturally oriented uses where the structure was basically classified as a recreational vehicle. The definition of a recreational vehicle under our code is a unit that would be occupied temporarily when you are away from your home. So that is what the definition of this particular structure would be. If it is not the will of the board to approve this use at this time, certainly your decision to make. But similar applications have been approved, so we presented it to you for your consideration.
A recreational vehicle, but they just stated they're going to take it off the wheels and mount it directly to the ground on a structure or foundation.
Yes, sir. So I believe in our conversation, you will be removing the wheels temporarily, but you will not be altering the structure in such a way that the wheels could not be put back on, correct?
Yes.
Does that help clarify?
Such as an RV, it has a waste tank. How is this system going to handle its waste? Is there going to be on a septic tank?
Yes, sir. It will be required to be connected to a septic tank.
Okay. Applicant. Being or Airbnb, if you're not at home, if you go on vacation, are you still going to allow this to be rented out with you not being at home?
No, the tiny house will actually sit, I don't know the distance, but essentially at the end of our driveway. And so we would not want guests that close to our home without us being there.
Okay. And I guess maybe I let Allison go too soon, but I'll just go ahead and ask you and it can be answered. I'm assuming that this tiny home comes with all the proper fire protection and safety of everyone that's going to be inside that unit?
Correct. It's NOAA certified, which I believe is, so it's got an egress window in the bedroom area, as well as a secondary area. So
Fire extinguishers are put in.
Yep.
And for your tenants who stay at this property, because obviously they're not going to know your property boundary lines, and you said you're going to let them enjoy nature, how are you going to prevent them from straying too far into other residents' property?
Our property has a fence line to it, and so my plan is to have a map that shows the trails that do exist on the property already, and where they can go and where they can't.
Okay, so your fence basically encompasses your whole property.
Correct.
The rectangular, yep.
Okay. Okay. I yield, Chairman.
Mr. Dobbs, do you have any questions or comments?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. Nor do I. Back to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank y'all. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion, you've heard the comments. Do I have a motion on S 2024-11?
Can I make a comment?
Huh? You want to make a comment? Okay.
I'd like to make a quick comment. I don't want to conflate this application, which is just special use permit in order to have someone stay short-term, and, you know, sort of mix that up with any issues what the neighbors may have outside of this application. So they're two separate issues. I just want to make sure that, you know, if there is other issues, you need to bring it up to either the owners, code enforcement, et cetera. But this is not really the forum to air that out. This application is just for being able to put a, you know, temporary, less than 30-day housing, Airbnb. That's it. We're not here to judge other things that they might or might not be doing. So I'll make that clear as to what our responsibilities are here. All right, so with that being said, I yield.
Do you have a motion?
Yeah, I do. I think we have the right one here. This one, right? Okay. I make a motion to approve S 2024-11, a special request permit for short-term rental located at 3905 Mason Creek Road in Winston.
And I second that.
I have a motion and a second. Now, do we have any discussion?
I have a question. Are we gonna put, well, not a question, but discussion. Are we looking at a 2-year, or are we just gonna just go straight with the 1-year inspection?
Well, there's nothing in the current motion that would trigger anything other than the 1-year check.
Okay, I just.
Doesn't necessarily mean it can't be amended if you feel necessary. You can ask for the motion to be amended.
I asked that the motion be amended to include after the 1 year, have a 2-year, I guess. Inspection.
Right, so the language that we would propose, if you're inclined to go in that direction, is the special use permit shall expire 2 years from the date of this approval if the applicant has not filed for a renewal of the special use permit, and this will not preclude the routine 1-year inspection to be made to determine that the property is in full compliance. If that language is suitable to you, I would just double check to make sure that the applicants are okay with that condition. If it is your intent to amend your motion to include that.
Well, I guess I need to
you wanna modify
restate.
your motion?
Yeah, I'm modifying my motion, but I need to make sure that the applicant is accepting of the additional motion.
I'm comfortable with the condition if it was a little bit longer. There's a significant investment on our part to install the septic tank, have the tiny house installed securely, that kind of thing. And so I would be quite disappointed to come back in 2 years and have this not renewed. We would not make our investment back.
What is your time frame to have this set up?
When it's approved, we're ready to get
Yeah,
within
so
a month.
we assume once the contractor starts, it'll be about a month. But it's about $40,000 to have it installed with the septic and the electrical and plumbing and everything ran to it. And so if we come back in 2 years and our special use permit was not approved,
Is
we
it
wouldn't.
just a update of it, or do we have to go to another hearing again to get the special use permit?
I'll let Allison address that.
That's correct. They would need to file for renewal of the special use permit. There is a slight reduction in fee when you're applying for renewal of a special use permit, but you would still have to go through the same process in terms of the notice, advertisements, hearing, and all that.
Okay, so that way, which is a good thing, which will allow the neighbors to monitor as well, and then say, hey, 2 years from now, these are the problems we found in those 2 years, and be able to address it to the board at that point. I like that. I think that's a good amendment to the
If the time is a concern, I think the longest, and Phil can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the longest we've seen is 5 years, to come back within 5 years. So if there's a time between 2 and 5 years that feels suitable, we are certainly amenable to whatever time frame you would put on it.
When I came on this board, it was routine to do it 2 years, and then they had to apply for a renewal. But that's changed over the time. But it's there. If you want to make a motion to that effect.
You want to start from scratch, or what do you do? You just have to.
Okay. And we have a motion on the table unless you want to modify it.
Yeah, you modify it.
No, you would have to modify it. It's your motion.
I got it.
It's
All
your
right.
motion.
Rob Thomas would like to make a motion to approve S 2024-11, a special request use permit for short-term rental located at 3905 Mason Creek Road in Winston, with a renewal 2 days after approval. 2 years after approval. Yeah, keep coming back every 2 days. Let me say it again, I'm sorry. I'd like to make a motion, S 2024-11, a special request use permit for short-term rental located at 3905 Mason Creek Road in Winston, with a renewal of 2 years after approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Now, do we have any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, my recollection is on special use permits, particularly that if an applicant proves themselves to be worthy, that time frame can be extended further out upon renewal from past experience. So just throwing that out for food for thought. Thank you.
And thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion to approve S 2024-11 with the comments that were made into the record. All in favor of approval, please signify by raising your hand. Those opposed? Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
S 2024-11 comes to you with a recommendation for approval with a 2-year time limit, then a renewal after that.
Okay. Board of Commissioners, S 2024-11 has been approved by the Planning and Zoning Board with the stipulation that it be renewed after 2 years. Do I have a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion to approve S 2024-11 with the recommendations from Planning and Zoning Board, with the amendments and all the findings from staff.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. It's been approved, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Best of luck to y'all. Next item, please, Ms. Duncan.
All right, next item on the agenda, S 2024-12. This is a special use permit. This is to allow for an event center in the heavy commercial zoning district located at 3870 Longview Drive, Commission District Number 2. The building is located on the north side of Longview Drive in a development called Midway Station. The building was constructed around 2005. It is a total of 16,000 square feet, adjacent to similar uses. Currently, there are 3 rental spaces in there. So one space is occupied by AEP Sales LLP. They identified themselves as a marine radar sales company. And then one space is occupied by Southern Comfort Homes, which is a residential home builder. The applicant is proposing to use the space as a family-friendly event center. So this will be for things like weddings, baby showers, birthdays, etc. The space is over 9,000 square feet. The largest room of assembly is just under 5,000 square feet, 4,980 square feet. They're proposing days of operation to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The proposed hours of operation are 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. The space does have a kitchen area. They are indicating that food may be brought in by outside caterers, but they're also proposing to be able to serve food, which will necessitate a food service permit to be issued by our Environmental Health Department. And then they do allow alcohol to be served on the property, though the venue will not provide alcohol. It would not actually qualify for an alcohol license under county policy, but they do propose that alcohol can be provided by the host, and all alcohol must be taken home at the end of the evening. They are also indicating that all alcohol will have to be served by a licensed bartender, and that ID checks will be required. So these are the relevant code sections. Essentially, special event centers that are over 2 acres do require a special use permit. We also had expressed some concerns about the parking maximums. So Article 6 specifies parking minimums and parking maximums, and the applicant is going to have to be able to satisfy the parking requirements under the code for this use to be established. Sorry. Let me look it up. So again, the Douglas County Unified Development Code does allow for any property over 2 acres to have an event center with a special use permit. They have described their event center as a family-friendly event center. We can specify certain necessary improvements on the property that need to take place. We have typically allowed special event venues to operate until 1 a.m. The applicant is requesting 2 a.m., but 1 a.m. is the latest that we have allowed the special event centers to operate. This is done by special condition because that is 1 hour beyond what the noise ordinance would regulate. And so we would propose a similar restriction in this case, that all events must cease at 1 a.m., but the host may be allowed 1 additional hour for attendees to depart and for the event to break down. Because this space is located in a multi-tenant retail space, we are recommending that all events be confined to the interior of the building. So we would not recommend that they could use the exterior, the parking lots or anything like that to have any sort of tents, table set up or anything like that. And then there are several impact statements that will need to be addressed. Those were included in the staff report. But we will recommend that the applicant will need to come to our development review committee to make sure that they have addressed all the concerns, including parking, sidewalks, and the environmental health concerns. Generally speaking, we do feel that the request is substantially compatible with the criteria in the code, as long as we propose some conditions on the property. So what we're showing you here is the zoning map on Longview Drive in terms of the subject parcel and the adjacent uses. This is also located in the highway corridor overlay as it's in close proximity to Highway 92. Here's the aerial image of the property. Here is a street view captured from Google Street View of the front of the property. And then also looking across the street, there is a daycare facility across the street from the property. And then just the general site plan, as well as the layout of the banquet facility that they are proposing on the interior. So again, this is located in our mixed-use corridor along the Fairburn-Lee character area of the comprehensive plan. And therefore, we are recommending approval of the request with the following findings and conditions. So number 1, the use will not modify the comprehensive plan or the spirit, intent, and purpose of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. Number 2, the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan categorization of this property as within the mixed-use corridor in the Fairburn-Lee corridor. And number 3, the granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. We are also recommending the following conditions. Again, these are similar to conditions that we have used in the past on other properties. So number 1, the applicant shall comply with the Douglas County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 11, in regard to noise control between the hours of 7 a.m. and 1 a.m. The applicant or customer shall provide security for the duration of any event on the property. No outdoor events are permitted, including but not limited to outdoor tables, chairs, tents, or any outdoor activity and loitering. The applicant shall submit to the Development Review Committee for review and consideration of the specific site development and access management plans to address the development standards in the Unified Development Code and the concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in the staff report dated March 5th, 2024. And the use may not commence until all agency impact concerns are addressed to the satisfaction of DRC. And that is going to conclude my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Duncan, before you leave, before I open the public hearing on this, have we had any comments, pushback from neighbors in the area on this matter?
We did not have anybody attend the community information meeting, to my recollection, about this, and we do not, Johanna, correct me if I'm wrong, we do not have any letters that we have received. We have not received any phone calls specifically about this use.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, you would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Is the applicant present? If you'd state your name and address for the record, and then I have a question for you.
All right, Kevin Carrillo, 4011 Carter Road, 30127.
Okay, you heard the presentation by Ms. Duncan. You heard the conditions that she recommended. Are you in favor of those conditions?
Yes, I am. The first, well, my original intent of doing 2 a.m. was to stop the parties or whatever the event is at 1 and have everybody by 2, because, clean up and whatnot. But yeah, that I'm in favor of that.
Okay, I just need to make sure you're in agreement with the conditions. You have 2 minutes to make any comments you'd
Yeah.
like for us to hear.
Okay. Yeah, so I made sure with my neighbors on Suite B and Suite C to introduce them to what I was trying to do in this on Suite A. I was made sure on what times they usually typically run, which is during the weekdays. So it really kind of fell into place, no really crashing in time-wise. And I also, just made them real clear to, see what we're trying to do. That's why nobody really came to the meeting, because we were all on the same page there. So, and as far as the alcohol and things of that nature, yeah, we won't be selling any alcohol. All alcohol will be provided by the host, and everything we'll have our licensed bartender that we will provide for the events, as well as security. That will all be included with every event that we do. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? And no one is moving, so therefore I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions or comments for staff or the applicant?
I do have a question just for the applicant, if you can come up, please. I'm familiar with the space. I know the open area is about 5,000 square feet. And what are you going to use the back area for?
On what?
Where the freezer is. Where the
Oh, yeah.
refrigerator freezer
So
is.
we're going to be having 3 rooms. One is the room A, and room B, room C, which is all labeled on the plan. Those will just be for changing rooms, for brides, grooms, and.
So you're going to build that out somewhat?
Yeah. So
Okay.
all we're going to be doing on the property is the interior remodel, and that'll be what all the extra space is used for, as well as a conference room. If someone's interested in the event space, they will come in, and I'll give them a presentation, show them what all the packages in the event, and that's what that space will be used for. We also have the stage will just be we're going to have a screen projector just for if the wedding groom wants to show pictures for so that's what that stage is for. And also for the audio, all that will be on the stage. It won't be open to public. And we also made a room for the furnace area right next to the electrical room, so all access to that area.
Okay. And you understand about the DRC requirements, Development Review Committee requirements? I think that was in the conditions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was as far as the parking spaces and all that. Okay, yeah.
Okay,
I kind of went. It's my first time, so I was kind of going back and forth with them and fire marshals just to be on there with all of that. So yeah, I kind of figured all of that with the fire marshals. They helped me out a lot there.
Okay, well, good. That's the only question I had.
Thank you very much.
And don't go too far. Any other questions, planning and zoning? Hearing none, Mr. Chairman, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you may have of the staff or the applicant.
Thank you, sir. Board of Commissioners, you have any questions or comments?
No, sir.
You mentioned alcohol would be furnished, if there was any consumed, it would be furnished by the host?
Yeah, by the host. So
People
no.
that rented it?
Mhm.
Okay. If somebody had a wedding and they had some wine or champagne or something like that, I don't think I'd have a problem with that. But if you were to rent it out to a party, well, let's just say young people, you could expect people getting a little loaded and maybe a little loud and things getting out of hand. Would there be any kind of security at those parties?
Yeah. So for most of my events, I'm gonna try to provide security, but alcohol, when alcohol is involved, security will be mandatory. So that will be already in the package. So we're going to be the ones putting the security and the bartenders, just so we can secure that, no alcohol is being served to minors, and also have a system to see how much people are drinking and whatnot. So, yeah, security will be
You
mandatory.
think you could manage that?
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Especially me, I will be on the site every event. So,
Yeah. Okay, all right, thank you.
thank you very much.
We have no more comments or questions. Back to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Remember, this is in District 2. Do we have any, do I have a motion?
Brandon Penniman, I make a motion to approve application S 2024-12, a request for a special use permit to allow an event center in the CH zone district located at 3870 Longview Drive.
Ord Curry, second.
Does that include the findings and conditions that were read into the record, please?
That motion includes the findings and conditions read into record by staff.
And
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you very much. Do we have any discussion, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of S 2024-12, approval for a special use permit with the findings and conditions that were read into the record by staff and accepted by the applicant. All in favor? Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
S 2024-12 comes to you with a unanimous recommendation for approval with the findings and conditions read into the record by staff.
Commissioners, we have a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board, a unanimous vote, that S 2024-12, a request for a special use permit to allow an event center, including the conditions that is required by Planning and Zoning. Do you have a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion to approve S 2024-12 as presented from the Planning and Zoning Board with all the findings and conditions from staff.
We have a motion. Do we
I
have
second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Best of luck to you. Okay, the next thing on the agenda, Mr. Schaefer.
I have some exciting news. We have some text amendments. Don't everybody scream yay at the same time. Yes, I will. Now, these text amendments have not changed. This is the text that we've had since literally December, which we originally sent out. I'll go through them very quickly if you have questions about any individual one. A couple of them are really important in terms of allowing DOT to act on the issue of right-of-way vacation, alley vacation, road vacation. So some of these are really kind of critical for what the board's being asked to do periodically here in terms of road ownership and then giving it back to private ownership. So that's kind of important. But let me just get started. So in Section 1, we have the first modification. That modification is to, in fact, allow for road vacations. So in, let's see, we've got under Article 1, Section 105.5, we're going to remove a piece of text and we're going to set it into a new Section 6. Authority to dispose of property, roads, rights-of-way, and easements no longer needed for public purposes. This is your authorizing language in Article 1 that lets us then go back into Article 12 and Article 10 with some more specific wording to allow the DOT to manage this sort of operation. If you want to vacate a road, vacate an alley, vacate an easement or a right-of-way of some kind, this is the start. We have to authorize them. So that's what this does. It authorizes the having been properly placed in the public or a semi-public zone district at the time of adoption. This language now gives us the way of turning public land that's not zoned into private land that would be zoned. This next section, Section B, is specific for the DOT. And there is some state language in here, OCGA 32-7-1. That's what gives us permission to do this vacating part. So we're adding text in here to do public purpose is no longer needed. We can vacate a road, abandon the right-of-way. One of the key points here, though, is whenever a street or alley is vacated, the presumption is that the fee is in the adjacent landowners and that the right to each extends to the middle of the way. And that's a court case. So when we do these road vacations or alley vacations or whatever, the fee for each side runs to the middle. The other piece of this is the zoning. You will recognize the zoning of the adjacent land when you abandon the right-of-way. And that's the only way to get that back out into a zoned district for whatever the zoning is next to the road when you vacate it. And here we have in Article 9, river and stream corridor protection adopted pursuant to. We've added some additional language in here. The article shall be administered in conformance with all applicable state and federal regulations and requirements of several court cases. And then this next part is kind of important in the watershed protection district. So when we're looking at the basin map, it's hard for us to know from the topography and the geography and the geology where the water truly drains. So we wanted to add this section in here that the Director of Development Services shall have discretion to interpret the precise boundary limits of the respective basins when site-specific topography calls into question the precise destination of surface water flows. And there's some follow-on parts to that, but I just wanted to make sure you knew we're trying to give the Director of Development Services the opportunity to say, if a geologist comes in and says, this is not where the water goes, or the Water and Sewer Authority says that's not truly where the water goes, we have some way of modifying without coming to you for a rezoning, because the basin map is a zone district, and it's fixed. So if we have some ability to adjust at the edges, the margins, by the director, and it's administrative, so we don't have to come back and clog the queue with a rezoning to modify the actual map itself. It's just at the edges where we want a little discretion, and that's given on the basis of topography and geography.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure, sure.
What would trigger that?
So
Meaning,
you have
know,
to come in, an applicant would have to bring us something that says, here's our engineering solution. We have had an evaluation of the property, and this is how it works. We would obviously do it in concert with the WSA, because they also have the final say when we do, when we do the engineering review for the DRC, they're involved. So they would see that and they would concur. Okay. So we would always ask.
So the property owner would say, hey, you got it all wrong. It's going
and we get that
south,
quite often.
Not south to, not east to west.
East or west. We get that quite often. And as long as there's a geology or a topography involved that we can document it, then this gives us a little bit extra way of looking at it. Okay. Anyway, moving on, in Article 10, when the zoning code used to be an appendix, Article 10 was the DOT section of your code of ordinances. Years ago, it was a code of ordinances where we had various chapters, and the zoning part was an appendix to all of that. When we made a unified development code in '04, Article 10 was lifted out of the old code of ordinances and bundled in with a bunch of others into our unified development code. Some of this language hasn't been changed since then. So it's literally been since before 2004. So again, in Article 10, we want to modify ever so slightly here that we're conforming with the plans of the county. We're conforming with the plans of the county, not necessarily specifically comprehensive plan, but whatever plans have been adopted. That's one thing, hadn't been changed. This one's kind of important. This is site distance triangles. So we're asking for a modification to allow specific measurements along driveways or streets when they come together to show what can't be built in that site triangle so you can look up the street. And this is the chart that tells you what those dimensions are going to be, and then this is the text that tells you how to measure it so that everybody knows very clearly if you pop a driveway onto a local street or pop a driveway onto an arterial street, you're going to have slightly different dimensions that you have to follow for that safe site distance. And that's what this particular section is for. It's the site triangle. I was most concerned with driveways because people pop driveways on and then start putting fences into that in the front yard. Well, here, we have a maximum height of 32 inches for anything in that sight distance area, or if you're going to plant trees, then the height of the mature branches has to be above 8 feet. So you have this 32-inch to 8 feet area where nothing can be obstructing the view. And that's what this is telling us here in this section. Signage too. So you will have some effect on some signs where you would have to lift the actual sign face up, or you'd have to have a monument sign that was quite low, or you just back out of the sight triangle altogether. This one, we used to have this picture, but somehow it got away from us, and I'm not sure exactly why, but it's kind of critical. And then here again, Section 1028, this is actually under Article 1, Section 106, authority to dispose of property whenever deemed in the public interest. The Director of Transportation may accept a petition to substitute for, relocate, or abandon public road or alley right-of-way or public easements under the procedures provided in Article 12. So here's our reference in Article 10 for all things DOT. You got to go to Article 12 for how. This is the you're okay to do it, but now Article 12 will be the how. And I'll get to that in a sec. And then here we are now in Article 12. What I will say is, I probably didn't say it early enough, we're trying to take all of the definitions from each of the sections and put them all in one place called Article 15. So here we still had some definitions that needed to be moved in Article 10, in Article 12, so everything's going to go to 15. So you can go to one place and look everything up. That's what we were trying to get at. Here we have a little bit of change here because we modified Article 5, last year and gave it some new titles and gave it some new dimensional not dimensional, but we gave it some new parameters. So we're trying to adjust titling here in order to provide the same exempt and minor administrative plats, subdivision plats, exempt and minor. These are pieces of text that had to be inserted because we modified that last year for Article 5. So in Article 12, you have to mirror Article 5. And then that's what we're trying to do here is mirror the same language that we approved last year. And then here we have review and approval process. Well, we changed the name of the department from engineering and transportation back to just transportation, so we're asking to change that. We don't use Mylar anymore, so final archival print is what we use now. It's paper. And then here, again, notwithstanding anything herein, this is the acceptance of public improvements. Anything to the contrary, dedication of proposed public rights-of-way easements and improvements shall not be accepted without approval by the Director of Transportation of the dedication deeds. So we allow the director to accept those deeds. Now, just as a procedural issue, so you understand, when we bring you plats, we will always make a comment to you as the board, and we'll see in another couple of weeks where we have a preliminary plat approval. We will also seek to allow the plat approval to include acceptance of the diagrammatic or the pictured rights-of-way. So you will see the right-of-way on the plat, and you will accept the plat, but by extension, you're also accepting in terms of contractual obligation, it's just accepting what's drawn, so you don't have to hear it again once you've seen it once, because typically we've been bringing you actual rights-of-way to approve on a periodic basis. But when you've seen the plat already and we allow you to say we accept the right-of-way as well, the dedications can be accepted and the chair has the right to sign all the related documentation. So we have to keep bringing those back to you. And when we don't have plats, of course, that's a different issue. They'll still have to come back before you if there are people out in the, do a lot, they want to dedicate right-of-way. But that's what this is for, is to allow the chair to sign whatever needs to be signed when we do preliminary plats. But here we have the director capable of accepting the plat and the rights-of-way that goes with it.
Quick question on that.
Yep.
So it's preliminary plats or?
Preliminary plats.
Or actual?
Yeah.
Okay.
The preliminary plat, because that's the initial drawing. That allows the board to make its intention expressed in the public that we accept the drawing of the plat itself as well as the rights-of-way eventually by signing the deeds to the county. So it's a grant of easement and a grant of the rights-of-way to the county.
When does it actually become of the final plat?
So the final plats are administrative. They've been administrative for many years. So when we get a final plat, we send it around to all the departments, all the agencies. They all go over it. We make sure everything's on it. When everyone has signed off on the final plat, stamped it, and we stamp it and sign it, then we bring it to the chair for his signature. That's part of what that original authorization for certificate of preliminary plat involves. It is language that allows the chair to sign that plat as well. And then it gets recorded. And then once it's recorded, deeds will have to be done for actually dedicating those right-of-ways. They have to deed the right-of-way to the county as well. And that's part of why, that's what's been coming to the board on a regular basis. When we do a final plat, they see this 3 times now. And we don't want to clog your agenda with stuff that you've already seen and can actually authorize ahead of time. So that's part of what this is. Vacation or abandonment of dedicated public rights-of-way or public easements, this is the meat of that issue. So here are the actual procedures of how to do it and what's necessary for a person to bring to us as an application. It's quite extensive because there's a lot involved when you give up a right-of-way. There could be a lot of stuff in that right-of-way in terms of infrastructure, or nothing, depending on if anybody ever developed. But this is what that section is, Section 1234. Again, it goes on, Section 1234, and then 1235 is to vacate plats. So we have the road issue as one issue. That's Director Suleiman Rana's issue. But here we have plats. What if you want to vacate an old subdivision plat? So I wanted to add in a piece that allowed that to happen as well. Here, same procedure. Planning and zoning would handle this piece of it. The other part of it is special exception variances. So now we're into Article 13. This one is something I've seen in many, many jurisdictions. It's one of those we just, I think, fell through the cracks. It's infill development. So we have a lot of lots that are left over in subdivisions that never got built on. And the setbacks for the subdivision are such that they're here. The height of the houses built are there. And here comes someone who wants to build in that subdivision. Well, current code doesn't allow them to do that. If it wasn't platted to say what they could do, where do you put the house and how tall should it be? So what we've developed here is a formula that says if you're an infill lot and houses have been built around you, let's look at what's adjoining you and let's average out the setback to make sure that you're right there where the average front yard should be, and then the height of what's next to you. So you kind of match what's going on in the existing subdivision. And that's what this part's trying to get at for special exception variances. It's one of those that we would like to be able to have the Director of Development Services review rather than try and bring you a rezoning or some variance to the Planning and Zoning Board. This is a way to allow us just to do that lot so it's specific and matches the neighboring properties. And then the appeals process, this one we would like to change. Last year we had a request from Miguel had asked us to put the DOT in charge of rights-of-way when it comes to bringing right-of-way appeals to the Board of Commissioners. And we would like to take this back so that all appeals of any action, administrative or any official action, would just go to the zoning board as the Board of Appeals. And the DOT has agreed to this. This is one of those where any person aggrieved of an administrative action or interpretation of an administrative official may initiate an appeal to the Planning and Zoning Board. We don't want to add in except that public right-of-way standards comes to the board only, because then suddenly you're now the Board of Commissioners acting as the Board of Appeals for just road issues. And that could bring a lot of other cases to you that are not necessarily what the board wants to hear in terms of road action. And then Article 15, again, all of the Articles 8 through 14, gather all the amendments together that shows all the definitions in one place. And that's my whirlwind tour of our, hopefully I didn't bore all of you to death, but it's the whirlwind tour of the small amount of text amendments we've got for you.
I do have one question about the
Sure.
appeals.
Yeah?
Who would make the, what is being appealed, is my question. I mean, they're appealing the decision from whom?
Every decision. Anything we do administratively, anything we tell people at the front counter, anything.
Administrative appeal.
Yeah, anything.
Administratively been,
Yeah,
done. Oh, sorry. Administratively been done.
yeah.
Not, nothing else, like from the BOC?
No. Yeah, it's-
Okay, this is
yeah.
administrative appeals.
So
Okay.
you see normal special exception variances, we'll have a meeting in a couple of weeks on that, the normal list of things that be
Right.
done. This one was specifically, if someone were in, say, DRC, and we said to you, you have to do X, Y, Z, and Z happened to be a DOT issue,
Okay.
they would have to bring that to the Board of Commissioners versus everything that might get appealed first goes to the Director of Development Services. He's the arbiter as the zoning official for the county. And then from him, if you're still aggrieved, you come to the Planning Commission as the zoning board of appeals.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Before we move forward, we have to have public hearing.
Correct.
I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a 15-minute allocated time.
I'm not allowed to speak in favor.
Okay, seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please approach the podium. You also would have 2 minutes per person for an allocated time of 15 minutes. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of staff? Hearing none, do I have a motion, Planning and Zoning Board, to approve the UDC amendments as stated in the record by Mr. Schaefer?
Brandon Penniman, I make a motion to approve. This is Brandon Penniman. I make a motion to approve the UDC amendments presented by staff, Mr. Schaefer and staff.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
We have a unanimous recommendation to accept the UDC amendments as read into the record by Mr. Schaefer.
Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board to approve the UDC amendments and recommendations. Is that correct? Did I say that right?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the UDC amendments as presented by staff.
Okay. Do we have a second? Maybe asleep. I'll second it. Do we have any comments? I have a couple of comments that relates exactly to what you were talking about as far as us giving away, which is not the right term, but unused road or abandoned road.
Abandoning the roads and
We did that on Liberty Road at Ephesus Church.
Old Liberty.
A couple of weeks ago. We agreed to give it to one of the landowners. You just said that it goes to the middle of the road. This landowner reported to us that the other landowner didn't want to deal with it and he didn't want it, so we gave it to the original landowner. And I just see a possible problem with doing that if this other guy's entitled to it, and we give it, not only do we give him his half, but we give that guy his half, what kind of problem does that create?
So I think this amendment's coming after your previous action. So what you've done before as a legislative act is valid. This just clears that up so
Okay.
that in the future, if you had that situation arise, it is possible for the one landowner who does not want it or does not care to allow the fee to go to the other side of the road. But you would need to know that in advance before you did it.
Well, we'd need our attorneys involved.
Yeah,
and,
we would need a little bit more work on
Okay.
who's getting what, because that was a court case, and it is kind of important. But you did act legislatively if there was no objection at the time from the owner that wasn't interested in the fee on his half of the road, and then giving it to the other side is probably acceptable.
Okay. One more question, and it relates to something similar. Maybe you can clear this up for me. Punkintown Road, which we have built a park at the end of the road, and supposedly part of Fouts Mill Road was somebody's driveway. That Fouts Mill Road had been abandoned, and there was a bridge over the creek, and the only place it goes is to this man's house. Why our attorneys are going through a legal process different from what we did on Liberty Road, and maybe you can, Suleiman, do you understand what I'm saying? Can you explain that?
Before the director jumps in, I might ask county attorney, because I think that is an ongoing question that they are investigating. So I might actually respectfully request that we may not take that up at this time unless Attorney Ringer feels differently from that. So. Is that?
Well, I understand what you're saying, but we're treating one person one way and one person another. And I, as the chairman of commissioners and this zoning board, ought to be able to understand why that's different. You know, why you wouldn't want to talk about it, you know, from a legal standpoint of what evidence or what would come forth by us talking about it. I mean, I'm not asking that kind of question. I'm asking why are we treating those different when they seem to be the same to me?
So Attorney Ringer can correct anything I'm saying that's wrong, but real estate matters are generally reserved for executive session. And because this is not executive session, I do not think it is appropriate to have this discussion at this time about any pending real estate matters in open session. Defer to Attorney
Ringer. Talking
Ringer
about changing the rules and policies of this board. Is that not what we're talking about? So why would, huh?
So again, this would be a change in policy that would apply broadly throughout the county. We're not comfortable discussing anything that is specific to any pending case in open session at this time, unless you respectfully.
We don't have rules right now in terms of what we're trying to get approved this evening. This gives us rules. What you've done up to now.
So that helps a lot, what you're saying. Before, we could do it any way we wanted to and do it differently if we wanted to. And what you're trying to do is cause us to comply with an absolute set of rules.
We are creating a process going forward that would apply broadly, would not be site specific, to any case. So, respectfully.
I think I'm okay with that, but I'm not actually. So, but I'll
Understood.
hold off. Okay.
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Do we have a motion? Did we approve a motion?
We got a motion, and you got a second.
Okay. All in favor? Did I probably already done this too? Did all in favor? Huh?
No, we have not voted.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You there, Mr. Dobbs?
Can we vote on this, County?
Well, you and I.
He was here for the quorum when we started. He was here when we started.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
got you now.
Oh, yay,
so
okay.
Did you vote in favor of this?
Yes.
We have a unanimous decision.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having
Thank you.
nothing else to come before the Planning and Zoning Board, I'll declare the Planning and Zoning Board meeting adjourned. Mr. Chairman.
We're adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Bang the gavel.
I have no idea how